to him, I said, huh, no idea. Guess what? It wasn't a big deal.
No.
Summer of '84 might have been the greatest summer of most of our Tiger fans' lives.
For a week, then you take it out. When you've got BOGO, it's like, hey, knock yourself out.
Broadcasting live from the Kobe Cooling Remote Studios, where it's always cool and comfortable.
Oh, I like
It's up to you now. It's up to you.
I like it.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live. The heck are you? Miller and Moulton Hump Day edition. Thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at millerandmoulton.com and broadcasting live once again on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and twitch.tv channels. Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm great. Excellent. How are you this morning?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing all right. Not great. I got to be honest. Every day feels like Groundhog Day, and I'm a little bored, to say the least.
Maybe you should write a book.
I don't know if I'm in the right place to do something that creative. It may be, I wrote a Christmas letter.
Oh boy.
And once, and my wife also we had a rough year, not the two of us, but as a couple, but just, some years life seems to win, and some years you think maybe you came out on top. And apparently I was not in a good place when I wrote the Christmas letter. This was the one Christmas letter in which people responded and said, it was funny, but it was dark.
Oh, no, I remember that one. One of my all-time favorites, because it was dark. It was really dark.
Right.
The writers of Shameless looked at it and went, Wow. Are you available next week? Because we could really use some help on this storyline.
Right. One of my best buddies in Jersey called me and said, you okay? I go, yeah, Bob, what's going on? He goes, I just read the Christmas letter for a second time, and I felt the same way I did after I read it the first time. You okay? You all right? Meanwhile, you knew the people in your life who liked dark humor. Like my mom thought it was great. My mom's like, hey, got your Christmas letter, laugh throughout, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, most people are concerned.
I was both. I laughed my tail off, and I was a little concerned.
So I have a feeling that if I sat down right now and worked on something, that it might be a little dark.
Hey, here's an idea for you. Since we don't know what Christmas is going to be like, how about, everybody this time of year, David, this is really the weekend coming for a big sale, because you know what people would be having? Christmas in July.
Oh, it's everywhere.
Why don't you write a Christmas in July letter? That would be hysterical right now. And I mean, make no mistake, try to be as dark as is humanly possible.
It's funny you say that. Remember on Monday, I wished my beloved Aunt Kathy a happy birthday. And when I was talking to her on Monday night, and she said, you're working on the Christmas letter? I go, I really don't think I should be writing it now. She goes, oh, no. With everything that's going on, you may want to write too. I said, well, I got to be honest. This year's been so rough, I almost thought about turning it into a monthly newsletter.
Well, millerandmoulton.com, there's been people wanting you to blog, David.
Maybe I just need to get some stuff off my chest.
Oh, that's kind of the way I look at it. That is definitely the way I look at it. But, David, no matter how you slice it, you and I both had better days than my mother-in-law. Mother-in-law is supposed to be here. Was supposed to get here yesterday at 6:18-ish.
Okay.
Then it was 7:30.
Right.
Then it was 8:30.
Uh-oh.
Then it was 9:30. Then it was 10:30. Then it was flight canceled.
Oh.
And she had a connection, so she was in Charlotte.
Oh.
So fortunately, another lady on the plane, I guess her son works in the hotel industry and was able to take care of the two of them. I felt good about where I grew up because I have one, and I couldn't even call her a friend. I would call her she was a friend 30 some odd years ago when I went to high school, but someone who I'm a Facebook friend with, and she's the only person I knew that lived in Charlotte. And out of shot in the dark, I sent a Facebook message to her and said, hey, what's the best place to stay around the hotel? And we ended up, fortunately, my mother-in-law, she's one of those people that if it's our idea, it's a bad idea. So we had to somehow get her to a hotel and make it be her idea. Which is difficult when you're trying to make reservations.
And it's over the phone, and she's worked up. Right. So this is very delicate negotiating here, in which also she has to not realize she's being played.
Right. And it ended up not working, but I did laugh when, and it turned out the girl that I was in contact with, after we chatted back and forth, she gave about 3 or 4 hotel ideas, and she simply said, I'd go get her right now, but I've got COVID. And, then we talked a little bit more, and she seems to be fine, but it's nice when you reach out to somebody from home and their first words are, if I didn't have COVID, I'd go to the hotel, I'd go to the airport, get her and bring her back to my house and she could stay here. Made me feel good about where I grew up, the people I grew up with, where I went to school and things like that. So I'm actually in a good mood this morning.
It also, though, shows right away the kind of relationship you have with your mother-in-law, because there are certain people who, if they heard that, would have said, well, just put your shoes on and go pick her up. But
Wow. Starting that letter a little early, huh, Ed?
Like I said, this might not be the best time for me to write that letter.
I don't know. I would really like to read it, because as much as you tell me during breaks and after the show, it appears you're suppressing some feelings, David.
I'm in a rut. I think it's fair to say I'm in a rut. All right. My mom was trying to pick me up yesterday, and finally I just said, Mom, I gotta go. And my mom knew it's not like I had to go. I mean, what am I doing? Where am I going? So she realized, getting the blow off from my son. Okay. You're in that kind of a mood. Fine. I'm done with you. I'm done with this guy. So,
going to be one of those days, everybody. Let's get that talk and text line out there right away. Williamson Brothers, bring it.
5551 479 5551. Listen, Mark, I'm in such a bad place. I might watch baseball. All right. I mean, I'm that emotionally fragile right now. I might watch baseball. I heard the Marlins blew an 8-1 lead last night, and it actually got, really? I mean, yes, that's right. I mean, that's how worn down I am by everything that's going on right now. Me, who swore off the baseball season, this opening weekend of the baseball season, I don't know. I may have to take in a few innings. All right. That's how fragile I am.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow, I don't know what to say, David. I really don't. I don't know. I mean, you're nearing the end, at least from the sports landscape. I mean, you are in the home stretch
of the abyss.
Yes, you are. I mean, you see
the light from here.
Whether or not you choose to walk to the light, David, is yet another story. Because right now, you seem to be not wanting to move toward the light. But the light's going to come either way. And that first light, as you pointed out, is baseball.
Tomorrow night.
And you can root, if you want to, it looks like, for the Pittsburgh Blue Jays.
Yes, or the Baltimore Blue Jays.
Right.
Apparently, they're considering Baltimore as well. Apparently, Toronto's really hell-bent on staying in a major league city, playing at a major league ballpark with major league facilities. And that's why they're ruling out, or at least they really don't want to apparently do Buffalo or do Lakewood, New Jersey, or, whatever places that have also Charlotte that have been, raising their hands saying, hey, we'll do it. I mean, I would have thought it would have been a natural for Nashville.
I don't know what their ballpark, if it's good enough. I mean, I really don't know. That was a dump when I lived there, but I don't know the answer to that.
I think they're still the Sounds, and I think they're AAA. All right. I know it suffered some flood damage a few years ago, but it's, you know, Nashville's a great city.
It is, but if I'm Toronto, I want to be a little further northeast.
Yeah.
If for one reason and one reason only, it's hot. You play in Charlotte, you play in Nashville, it's hot.
I want to play in the Northeast just for travel. I mean, I'm going to play all the teams in the Eastern Division. We're going to be inconvenienced. I want to be inconvenienced as little as possible. So put me somewhere where the travel, apparently there are 7 dates that conflict between the Pirates and the Jays. So when they were looking at schedules, apparently they have to figure out what to do on 7 dates, which of course, not that fans are going to any of these games, but I don't understand why, one team can't play at noon and the other team play at 7. But
it would be, David, it would be really difficult to turn the locker rooms, the clubhouses around. It's not like a hockey venue or a basketball venue where you have 8 locker rooms. Baseball facilities aren't built that way. There's 2 clubhouses. There's a home clubhouse and a visiting clubhouse. And even if the game ends at 3:30, depends how long the first game goes. But to turn that around and get that ready so teams can warm up and get it sanitized and get it clean and all of the things you would need to do, because that's the other part of this. That's where all of these sports are going to run into some interesting problems when we start playing games. It's all fine and good for practices with the protocols that are put in place. And I still think hockey and basketball seem to have the necessary setup to get through their seasons. But when you're talking about baseball and all of the things that have to happen in between series, talking about football, all the things that will have to happen between weeks 1 and week 2, there are a lot of areas of concern.
Well, we're flying, and they do it on flights, in between flights, where they're, hosing it down, so to speak. So, I figure there's a way to do it. But, yeah, they obviously would prefer not to have 2 games with 4 different teams in the same facility in a day. But just saying that right now, that's the glaring problem, where Pittsburgh's the leader in the clubhouse. Baltimore is a few lengths back. And in Pittsburgh's case, they've got 7 dates they've got to work out where right now there are conflicts, which 7 out of 162 doesn't seem like a whole heck of a lot, but 7 out of 60 is a lot more. And when you consider that the home games are 30, now they could just, flip. Hey, we'll put Toronto on the road, flip this series instead of being at home. We'll put you on the road and then we'll bring you back. But, so they're working on it. They are working on it. And Toronto plays Friday, right? Now, I think they're on the road, but Toronto plays Friday, right? I mean, everybody who's not playing Thursday plays Friday. So, I know they got time, but, the Blue Jays are actually in Tampa to take on the Rays to start the year. And then they're in Washington to take on the Nats. And Toronto's home opener, I believe, is a week from Thursday, also against the Nats. It's either Wednesday or Thursday when they're – so they got a week to figure this out. They got to find Toronto a home and a hotel. They've got about a week to do so, does Major League Baseball.
I mean, don't you have to take the under on the Blue Jays based on what's going on?
Yes. Yeah, you got to figure this is going to cost them a couple, 2-3 games in the standings.
I mean, their over-under's 27.5 for the record.
Which I thought was a good number, right about there. The Jays are a 28-32, 27-33 type team. Both Eastern divisions are tough. So, of the, how many teams do we have in these divisions? Of the 10 teams, where would you rank Toronto? You'd put them ahead of the Orioles. You'd put them ahead of the Marlins. How many other teams would you put Toronto ahead of?
I don't know. I mean, I would group them in with the Phillies. I don't think they're as good as Boston. I don't think they're as good as the Mets.
So we're basically saying out of the 10 teams,
they're 7 or 8, aren't they?
7 or 8. And then when you throw in the fact that they're not going to sleep in their own bed at any point in time over 2+ months, then yeah, I think you got to go under on the Jays.
For the record, the Baltimore Orioles, according to Las Vegas, are the worst team in baseball. Their over-under is 20.5. If they can go 21-39, you win the bet.
Well, that means winning 1 out of every 3 games. I mean, if they go 1-2 in every series, they'll go 20-40. So that's not a bad over-under. That's right there.
The Yankees are at 37.5. I would just bet. I may bet a decent amount of money on the under. I think that's pretty difficult to do.
They're pretty good. They are. They are. Though one thing I do believe you have to take into consideration if anybody's thinking of throwing a few shekels on the baseball over-unders, you need to think in terms of scheduling. Most times in baseball, you don't. But this time, you definitely have to. Teams in the East are playing their division and the other leagues East, Central to Central, West to West. Well, let's be honest. If you're a good team in one of the Centrals, that's a big advantage. There's a lot of mediocrity in the 2 Central divisions. Like, what's the Twins over under, Mark?
34, I believe. It is the highest. The Astros are at 35.
Well, they're in the West.
Oh, they're in the West. So the Twins have the highest over under period in the Centrals.
Of the 2 Centrals. And see, I think you might want to lean over with the Twins. Because, like we just talked about, if you were to rank the 10 teams in those 2 divisions, well, they're number 1. But also, let's count how many bad to below average teams that there are.
Well, you've got the Royals and Tigers in the Central right off the bat.
And the Pirates. Until proven otherwise, the Pirates. I mean, and in the Twins' case, they got 10 games against the Tigers and 10 games against the Royals. I mean, that's 1/3 of their schedule is against 2 of the 4 or 5 worst teams in the league. I mean, there's a chance the Twins could have home field advantage in the American League playoffs. I really believe that. For scheduling it, the Yankees are the best of the 10 teams, but there are really good teams in the 2 Eastern divisions. I mean, there really are. I mean, if Boston right now might be the 7th best team in the 2 Eastern divisions. Now, they've lost a lot through trades and sales injury and all that. But think about that. Boston might be the 7th best team. Mark, I would make the case there are 4 teams in the NL East better than the Red Sox at the start of this season, before injuries set in and the coronavirus. I might make the case that there are 4 teams in the NL East that right now are better than the Red Sox. Or certainly the Red Sox are even with. Like, if you want to say they're even with the Phillies or even with the Mets, okay. But I think with Boston's starting pitching situation, I might even put them behind the top 4 teams in the NL East. So, I mean, think about how, and that is the one factor for the Yankees and the Rays. And for that matter, any of the teams in the NL East who don't win the division. I think if you look around the wild card, you could see a wild card that emerges from one of the 2 Central divisions, or maybe even one of the 2 Western divisions, in which they eke out a team in the East by a game. And it has a lot to do with scheduling.
It's where David Sampson liked the Oakland Athletics for that reason. You know, they're in the West. It's going to be a little bit easier. He likes their team to begin with. But as David mentioned, you look at the East right now. The Braves, the Nats, the Mets, and the Phillies all have over-unders over 30 games.
All right. So the projection is you got 4 above 500 teams. And clearly the Yankees and the Rays are projected to be above 500. So if you're a Red Sox fan.
And the Red Sox, by the way. The Red Sox are 31.5.
And I'd go under on Boston. Their starting pitching really concerns me. And like I mentioned, the schedule's going to be tough.
I mean, just think about that right there. You've got the Red Sox, the Rays, the Yankees.
I mean, if you're the Toronto Blue Jays, that's half your schedule. Half half your schedule, you got to play 10 against the Yankees, the Rays, and the Red Sox. Well, I mean, you play your blank off. Play your you-know-what off in those 30 games. 13-17 would be pretty darn good, quite frankly, with what you're bringing to the table versus what they're bringing to the table. And now your season's halfway done. Well, you better, all right, you go 8-2 against the Orioles or something like that. Now you're a game or two above 500. Now you got to play the East. And we just mentioned there are 4 teams. You're playing 16 games against teams that are better than you. You got 4 against the Marlins, and the other 16 are a dogfight. I mean, you're going to have to play your you-know-what off to be 500 or a little bit above. And then you're competing for a wild card spot against teams in the West and the Central. I mean, that's why I'm telling you, don't sleep on the Indians. Don't sleep on the second place team in the AL Central, because for scheduling, if nothing else, they could throw 34 wins up on the board and sneak into a wild card situation like the Nats did last year. And goodness knows the Indians have frontline pitching. You can get through the one-game showdown, and after that, all bets are off.
Once again, David, you may be in this dark, horrible, miserable place, but when I let you go off on baseball, I don't know about the rest of you listening, but this season sounds spectacular. I'm not kidding. When you break this, I mean, I am jacked. I wish that there was a baseball game I could watch right now. I'm so excited.
Well, I do make the season sound better than Rob Manfred does. I mean, you got to give me that.
You're selling this. I mean, you despise every part of this, and
hate it.
You are selling it so well. I've got baseball over-unders in front of me.
I know.
Every commercial break, David and I are doing over-unders until they're done. Telling you right now. I may have to go for a coffee. David might have to get that English muffin with peanut butter. But other than that, we're doing baseball over-unders. If there is a reason to sign up for Twitch.tv, go to the Miller and Moulton channel, subscribe. We would ask you. We'd really appreciate it if you did that. If you have Amazon Prime, you get a free subscription. Choose us. That's all we ask.
Normally, ladies and gentlemen, I would urge you, I would implore you, I would Surgeon General on Monday beg you, okay, which is what he did on national television for people to wear masks. But I would beg you to go the other way on Mark Miller when it concerns over-unders. In a normal baseball season, all right, Mark has been awful in our second act on the baseball over-under.
Yeah, David kicks my butt.
However, I have a feeling that what Mark needed was a 60-game season. If it was 162, bet the ranch the other way. Treat him as mush. But you know what? This might be right to your liking. I feel like the guy at the track in which I'm just going to bet some long shots today. Whatever you say, in which my friends are going, you don't normally listen to him. And I go, I just got a feeling. He's due. He's due. Today's his day. This could be your year, Mark. This season, it's got you written all over
You're
it.
Damn right it does.
This is a perfect baseball season for you.
Listen to how well the baseball season's already going for me. David's waxing poetically about how much he hates this. I'm loving it.
Right.
I have people in the Twitch chat room right now asking me individual teams over unders. I'm answering them while doing the show.
Right.
With a huge smile on my face.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. It's the degenerate gambler in you also.
Oh. Got to get my fantasy golf picks in today. It's Wednesday. I mean, I love Wednesdays.
I'll tell you. There may never be as much action on an Angels-Rangers Tuesday night game as there's going to be in 2020. Let me tell you. Whew, that's the kind of year we're having here. Miller and Moulton. Thanks so much for being with us. We'll talk plenty of baseball again in our 8 o'clock hour. Mark Melanson's reliever for the Atlanta Braves. He's going to join us at the top of the 8 o'clock hour. How about that?
Look at this show.
What in the world's going on here? NBA head coaches, NHL head coaches, Major League Baseball players?
I think he's like a 3-time All-Star.
Yeah, well, what in the world? Making some good coin
Oh,
too.
yes, sir.
He signed one of those 4-year, 60 million type deals 3 years ago.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah. No, Mr. Melanson's doing okay.
Yep, Southwest Florida resident these days, David.
Well, and now that he's with the Braves, if he finishes his career with Atlanta, he won't have to commute too far.
No, should have been able to just stay home for spring training.
Right. So he'll join us at 8 o'clock, and of course Seth Everett a couple hours from now. So it's going to be a lively show. Baseball over/unders apparently during the commercial break. So you got
Mets,
that to look forward
Cardinals,
to.
and Braves to start, because that's where the fan action is inside of the Twitch chat room. The starting five is next. Let's gamble, everybody. Miller and Moulton, thanks for listening. Fox Sports Radio, where we stream the show at millerandmoulton.com. And you can watch and find out about where Moulton's going on over-unders.
Let's play two
on twitch.tv.
Alexa, Fox Sports FM on TuneIn.
LeBron has shown his greatness. Kevin Durant's a better player.
Sorry, I don't know that one.
Smart speaker.
Are we cheering for idiots? What's going on?
Sounds more like a dumb speaker, am I right? You're an idiot. Nice
All right, hold on here. Hold on.
Sports talk delivered to your speaker.
You're all over the place, people.
Hello.
The White Sox are a fascinating one to me because people are high on the White Sox. And I think a little bit of it is because what David talked about. They get to play the Royals and the Tigers, but they're 31.5. 31.5 for the Chicago White Sox. They still have to play the Cardinals, Cubs, Reds, Brewers.
Dan Martineau here, owner of DR Martineau Roofing of Southwest Florida.
I just don't know if the White Sox are a 500 team.
7 years. We operate with integrity, knowledge, and service.
I'm going to, boy, if I had to lean there, I think I'd lean over just because of scheduling. I mean, they got 24 games against the Royals, Tigers, and Pirates.
With lobster season right around the corner,
Rockies are 27.5.
Couldn't come at a better time. Now tomorrow through Sunday at Captain Pete's, you can grab
I'd
the
go
best
under.
deals on regulators, plus hundreds of closeout masks, fins, snorkels.
Well, you've got the Mariners at 23.5.
Under.
The Rangers at 28.5. Everybody else in the West is over in the AL.
Yeah, I'd go under on the Angels, by the way.
In the NL, you've got the Giants at 25, the Rockies at 27, everybody else over 500. 30.5 for the Padres, 31 for the D-backs, and then the Dodgers are 38.
I'm going under on the Dodgers, over on the D-backs. Arizona won 86, 87 games last year. And they got Bumgarner. Arizona's not bad.
No, they're not.
I think Arizona's going to make the playoffs. Actually.
And at 31, that's a sexy bet. I like the over there. We do all of these. I think the over. I'm tempted to go over on the Reds 31.5. You know I'm a closet Reds fan.
Yeah, I think you have to with their pitching.
Right.
Here's interesting. Are the Cubs over 30?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that division, you got the Braves 33.5, the Cubs 32.5, the Reds 30. I'm sorry. Yeah. You got the Cubs 32.5, the Reds 31.5. You've got the Cards 31.5, the Brewers 30.5, and then the Pirates are 25.5.
Selection and great pricing on Cortec flooring. Tim, tell us what's new at the store.
Right now we have colors of Cortec in stock, ready to go.
You may be right on Bumgarner, but he still knows how to pitch against the Dodgers. I'll tell you that right now. I think he gets fired up every time he does that.
Well, the other thing he'll do is that, they've got Bumgarner and Ray at the top of their rotation, 2 lefties and 2 innings eaters.
Looks like tile, looks like stone, but it's Cortex, so you get the softness, quietness, and the easy installation to go with it. We also have Cortec wood, look of wood, real wood.
Hey, with a week and a half to go in the season, the Diamondbacks were a game behind the Nats for the last wild card spot.
You really owe it to yourself to visit the store. 6281
They just fell apart in the final week and a half.
Or go online, floormeisters.com.
We could really have fun. We could do baseball over-unders, and if you had to make a food choice right now that you could eat, we could pick,
Oh, my goodness. I got a poll question for you, though.
I love it.
It's based on something that's in our starting five.
Bring it.
Did you hear about the L.A. Laker who chose staying in the bubble with the Lakers instead of going to his sister's wedding?
I did not.
Yep. So I think that needs to be our poll question. All right. If you were Alex Caruso,
all right,
what would you have done?
I think we could just.
Because his sister's wedding was in Texas also. So, you're going to a hot spot. You're leaving the bubble. You're going to a hot spot. Protocol said they could quarantine you for 4, 10, or 14 days, depending on whatever the league chose. The wedding was this past weekend, so you would have returned Sunday or Monday. And after consulting with the Lakers, he decided to stay in the bubble. I would have gone to my sister's wedding, but...
Your life.
28 minutes before 7 o'clock. Top of the morning to you. How the heck are you? We are Miller and Moulton. This is Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We stream this show at millerandmoulton.com. That's where you go to vote in our poll question of the day, which will be coming up shortly. It's also where you go if you miss any part of the show. You can download every hour. It gets its own podcast courtesy of Connecticut, the best damn water that we have ever had during our days in Southwest Florida. Connecticut, SWFL.com. I'm enjoying some right now. Without further ado, time for...
The starting five big stories that you need to know. This is Miller and Moulton Starting Five. Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
Well, NFL coaches and general managers don't have a whole lot of work to do. Did you hear what the NFL and the NFLPA agreed to late yesterday? They're checking off issue by issue here. Monday they got testing arranged, and yesterday they formally, hey, we're not going to have any preseason, but also rosters in training camp, which are normally 90. The owner said to the Players Association, yeah, if you want proper social distancing, we need fewer players. So they agreed there would only be 80 players in camp. Okay. Now let's do the math. 53 make the opening day roster, and I believe practice squads are going to be as many as 16 because of the coronavirus. Well, that's 69. So if you're in camp, you've got about an 85% chance of making the team. Stay healthy. You're 85% chance you're going to be with the team in one capacity or another at the start of the season. But an 80-man limit for training camp and no preseason games, that has been agreed to between the NFL and the NFLPA. I thought Mike Pereira, Mark, tweeted out something interesting in which he said, I know everybody hates preseason games, but I come at this from an officiating standpoint. Was really hoping there would have been one. Tough to hit the ground running as an official in the game counts. He said, really wish there could have been a game. Now, I know, we might send some people to certain training camps and they'll, have some in-house scrimmages and we'll try to get some guys some reps that way. But Pereira said, for a bunch of reasons, I know everybody only thinks of the players. He goes, but I was also thinking, from an officiating standpoint, wouldn't mind one dress rehearsal, as opposed to having to hit the ground running that second week of September and be on your game. If the players are at 80% efficiency week one, we'll deal with it. But if the officials are at 80% efficiency week one, we'll be screaming bloody murder.
Like we do at the beginning of every football season. We did it last year. Pat every week would come on and tell us how many penalties were called, and we'd see it dwindle as the year went on like it does every year. David, I think it's a valid point, but in the grand scheme of things, it's a pimple on the behind of sports.
And Pereira said that. He goes, but he always, that's his job. He goes, let's face it, my job is to talk officiating. I really wish that, my guys, if you will, if they had one dress rehearsal before they had to appear on Broadway, so to speak. Vikings owner Ziggy Wolf and the Wolf family right now are the leaders in the clubhouse to buy the Minnesota Timberwolves. Care to guess back in 1994 what Glenn Taylor paid for the Minnesota Timberwolves?
He's not the original owner, right?
No.
He purchased the team, and I know it was in the millions, but I don't know what the number was. Go ahead.
$90 million.
And they think $1.2 billion, I believe, is what I'm seeing.
Yeah, the franchise apparently has been valued at a little under 1.4, and the asking price, at least the opening, is nothing less than 1.2 billion. Also, the Taylor family has said to all interested buyers, the team must stay. So for somebody who wanted to buy it and move it to Seattle, that's not an option.
Well, in the Wolf family is one, but Kevin Garnett has got a group together that's another interested buyer.
Yes. Now, if you're the NBA, though, I mean, let's face it, you'd probably want the NFL owner in the same city. I mean, he owns the Vikings. I mean, wouldn't if you had to choose, would you?
In 2020, David, I think the NBA would want Kevin Garnett to own the team.
Okay.
With where the league is socially and what they're trying to do, to have a black man fronting the ownership group of a team, I think that's exactly what the NBA would want.
This is an interesting dance that is going on because Kevin Garnett hates Glenn Taylor. This is personal. When Flip Saunders died, Flip and Kevin Garnett had an agreement. KG retired. He went back to the Timberwolves. Flip was running the show. He was, coach, GM. He was running the organization. And Flip got sick. But Flip had said to KG, hey, apparently they had worked out, the Taylors are going to want to sell this. I'm going to want to put you in charge of the franchise, and you'd have an opportunity to, even buy it down the road. But you would be brought in to run the franchise at some point in time. And Glenn Taylor, after Flip Saunders' death, according to Kevin Garnett, went back on that agreement. And so Kevin Garnett, back in April, went public with his dislike for Glenn Taylor, called him a snake, said you don't make deals with snakes, blah, blah, blah. So yesterday, when Kevin Garnett is contacted about trying to buy the Minnesota Timberwolves, he said, and I quote, well, listen, Mr. Taylor and I have had our differences, but all I know is the two people who love the Timberwolves and want to keep them in Minneapolis the most are Glenn Taylor and Kevin Garnett.
Yep.
So here's KG, okay, a proud man who was adamant, I will have nothing to do with this franchise.
And his jersey's not retired because of this relationship.
Right, he won't agree to a date.
He won't show up. He won't. Right. I mean, just to further amplify what David's talking about, they want to retire his jersey. He won't show up for the event because he hates this guy.
Right. Don't know what to tell you. Not stepping foot in the arena. Not as long as you own the team. Well, I'm selling the team. Hey, would you sell it to me? Here's an interesting situation. What would you have done if you were Alex Caruso? And first off, we could ask everybody, who is Alex Caruso? And if you know he plays for the Los Angeles Lakers, you know what? Give yourself
You win some blue emu.
Oh, come on now. I think that's worth a little bit more. Don't get me wrong.
It's all I've got, David. It's all I've got. I'm not giving them the Phil Steele College Football Magazine. I've got 3 things in my possession these days, David.
Well, Mark, I'm thinking it more along the lines of let's make a deal. There's the one curtain in which you win nothing. You win an empty box of Triscuits. All right. Then behind door number 2, you win a little something. That blue emu might be part of the gift bag, if you will.
Gotcha.
There's other stuff in it. And then behind, curtain number 3 or whatever it is, that's the trip to Tahiti. And so you've won, if you know who Alex Caruso is. I think you've won what's behind door number 2. And now we ask you, do you want to keep that or do you want to risk it for either the empty box of Triscuits or the trip to Tahiti? But Alex Caruso plays for the Lakers. Alex Caruso's sister was getting married last weekend. Well, normally, July 18th wedding is a pretty good date to get married if you're an NBA player.
In fact, I'm actually guessing that when this was all done, it was put in part because, hey, we know his year should be over by then.
Even if they go to the finals,
right?
He'll be done for a month.
Right. I mean, I honestly believe the date was picked with the brother in mind. I don't know it to be true, but I would bet a decent chunk of money saying the date was picked wanting to have the family together for the wedding.
And I love my brother and all, but I don't think he's going to be considered for the Olympic team. So
right.
He's going to be available.
We're good.
Right. And obviously we know what has happened.
Hell, he's probably paid for the wedding.
And so now Alex had a decision to make. Go attend his sister's wedding, sister who's 2 years older than him. They're very close, reportedly. But if you leave the bubble, and there are players that have left the bubble. Zion is still gone from the bubble. He hasn't come back. Harkle left the bubble. Others. Now, you are subject to anywhere from a 4 to 10 to 14-day quarantine when you come back. It depends on where you go, how long you were there, and the reasoning that you left. So when Zion comes back, he's going to be quarantined for 4, 10, or 14 days. I mean, and they've got it listed in their protocols and all that. Now, Caruso's sister, was getting married in Texas. Obviously, a bit of a hot spot right now. So what would you have done if you were Alex Caruso? He decided, after talking it over with everyone, to stay in the bubble because he was worried about going to a wedding and getting the coronavirus and then bringing it back to the team. And so he opted to stay in the bubble and did not attend his sister's wedding. What would you have done? Just throwing that out there. 479-5551. Notre Dame Athletic Director Jack Swarbrick came out and said, all right, if you asked, let's start the season a little bit late, nothing crazy, week or two. Let's play 8 to 10 games. I don't see how we can play 12 this year. Let's give ourselves some, leeway. We don't know what's going to happen. So 8 to 10 games, and maybe we start a week or two late. What do you say? So, he's got that early season game scheduled with Navy. I mean, I believe it's Labor Day Saturday now. It's been rescheduled to. So, I mean, that's just a week, Jack. I mean, you're still planning on playing that, right? So thought that those comments were interesting. Speaking of college football, the Canes with a big signing. He's ranked number 11 overall on the 24/7 Sports site. He's ranked 33rd overall in the ESPN 300. 5-star safety James Williams from American Heritage Plantation, Mark, stayed home and signed with the Canes. This is the first 5-star recruit to sign with any of the big three in the state of Florida for the class of 2021. First 5-star signs with the Canes, chose Miami over Georgia, and he had been offered scholarships from Clemson, LSU, Ohio State, Alabama, you name it. Baseball season starts tomorrow night. Marlins are in midseason form. They blew an 8-1 lead in the 8th and lost to the Braves last night, 10-9. We'll talk to Braves reliever Mark Melanson coming up at 8 o'clock. Marlins start their season Friday night, 7 o'clock in Philadelphia. We'll have Marlins baseball here on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports
Excuse
Radio.
me?
Yes. Yes. Hey, little baseball on the radio. Let's look at the teams they're playing.
Okay.
Mark, with Marlins baseball, do you know what you get? You get
Yankees,
10 games
Mets.
against the Yankees, Red Sox, Rays, Braves. I mean, you get a pretty good little schedule over these 2 months. So we'll have Marlins baseball beginning Friday night at 7 in Philadelphia. And Toronto right now looks as if the Blue Jays are going to play their games in Pittsburgh. The Pittsburgh, the leader in the clubhouse. Baltimore right now also being considered. The Jays would prefer to be in a major league city, in a major league ballpark with major league facilities, as opposed to being in Buffalo or Charlotte in a AAA city with AAA facilities. So right now they're trying to work things out with the Pirates and PNC Park. And that, Mark, at 14 minutes before 7 is...
Five big stories that you need to know. This is Miller and Moulton Starting Five. Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
Yesterday's poll results, today's poll question. All to wrap up hour number 1 of Miller and Moulton on this hump day. Thanks so much for being with us, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Welcome to the program.
I like that, Tom. Marlins baseball, feel the heat.
Wow, nice.
Next week, Nick, NHL over-unders with baseball starting.
And/or college football doesn't go as scripted. But we've also been hopeful. Now the reality starts to set in. The Dan Patrick Show. Weekdays at 9 a.m. on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
Yeah, I'm just getting on the Twitch chat room here. I'm late to the party today.
Welcome, David.
6:47.
Good to see you.
Oh.
Are you going to change your name in December to Moulton 55?
Yeah, probably.
31.5, I believe, on the Reds. That page is not up right now, Arch. Hang on. 31.5. I'm going over, by the way, Arch. It's one of the few bets I'll make on the baseball season. I'm going over on the Reds. I'm going over on David's D-backs. Boy. Can the Tigers lose 2 of 3 in every series?
Oh, sure.
You think the Tigers are an 18-win team? I mean, they did lose Zimmerman, too. 22.
Oh, I think I'd have to go under.
I think I would, too.
I mean, they do get the Royals, which helps.
But, I mean, they lost Zimmerman for the year, which might have been their best arm.
What's the Rays? Everybody's very high on the Rays.
34. It's a big number. I know they are. 32.5 on the Cubbies, Tom.
I think I'd go under on the Cubs.
I would, too.
Although with some of their pitching, and they don't have a lot of depth. The 60 game, if, going to work one way or the other. If you get hurt, you're screwed. Or if you get sick, you're screwed. But you know what? If you keep a group healthy for 2 months.
Another great American comeback story in stopping the virus will be in the books. We will have a great victory. Our story continues. And return to
Probably should refresh this.
It's what I said yesterday. It makes me sick to my stomach to hear it. We gotta. How do you want to word this? Because one, no one knows who the hell it is.
Yeah, it's complicated because it's basically, if you're an NBA player and your sister was.
But I think it's. I do think, like he said, look if we were fighting for an 8 seed, I'd have gone to the wedding. We're trying to win a championship, and he's got Rondo and Rondo hurt, and the one guy that's not coming.
Right, and Dwight Howard's a flake.
Right, but I mean, from a guard standpoint, they don't have depth at his position. Both Davis and LeBron said, we support whatever you do. GM and coach. He was going.
Please don't go. Right.
No, he was going. They had given him approval. And 2 days before, he says, I can't. And that's why, I mean, I think it's got to be Lakers, you know.
Crispy bacon and onion rings and topped with tangy barbecue sauce. But we added spicy jalapenos and melty pepper jack.
Alex, right?
Alex, A-L-E-X.
C-A-R-U-S-O.
Yep. Alex Caruso's sister was getting married last weekend.
Skipped his sister's
Wedding
last
weekend in Texas. What would you have done?
Stay in the bubble.
What would you have done? Did you say Lakers guard, Alex Caruso?
Yes, Lakers shooting guard Alex Caruso. Skipped his sister's wedding last weekend in Texas, comma.
To stay in the bubble.
Choosing to stay in the bubble. What would you have done? And I'm putting in parentheses, apparently he really liked his sister.
This is Miller and Moulton. You're live.
8 minutes before 7 o'clock. Thanks so much for being with us. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at millerandmoulton.com, broadcasting live on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. There is a story out there for the second day in a row, and it might affect the local sports scene. We will talk about it coming up after the top of the hour. How about that little tease right there, huh?
Nice.
That's good for me.
Nice. That's excellent for you. Yesterday, we went local
for
our poll question and received a lot of participation. People, whenever we go, if we have the right subject, local people are in.
Right.
We have to be careful, but the high school football scene is a big one, and it's very simple. Should they play high school football in Florida this year? 48% of you said yes in the fall. 28% of you said yes after January 1. And 24% of you said not at all. We will find out tomorrow what the next step is for football in Florida. They're meeting again. They like to meet. Their meetings have meetings right now.
Well, they're going to meet locally. And then I think the FHSAA is meeting again next week. Practice scheduled to start Monday. Thought it was interesting. TV stations are out there interviewing coaches, and they got some coaches on the record yesterday. Some to say, I think we should push it back, and others to say, I'm ready to go. So even the coaches are split. But 3 out of 4 of you, though, who responded think that they should play high school football this year in some way, shape, or form. 24% of you said not. But, Mark, I threw out a quandary, a question there a moment ago. What would you do if you were Alex Caruso? Is there a way that we can make that a poll question?
Oh, I am on the verge of hitting send to make it a poll question.
So you like my idea?
I do. Wow. And there are a few caveats as we read this question that we have to put in there. First and foremost, according to Alex, he really likes his sister. I think that's the most important. Now, David and I are only children, so we have trouble with that. But I know, my wife has a brother, and my wife in a few weeks is going back for her uncle's funeral. And her brother has basically let everybody know, I'm going to have a mask on. I'm going to say hi to all of you at the burial, and I'm not going to touch any of you. He is at your wife's level of COVID readiness.
Right.
And last night, that was our dinner discussion. I read the email, and I went, I don't know what to tell you. If that's the way he feels, I don't think he's that out of line with that. Language could have been a little bit nicer, but at the end of the day, that's how he feels. I don't know what to tell you. So Alex Caruso was set to go, and he said if they were fighting for an 8 spot, he would have gone. But they're trying to win a championship, and they've got 2 players not there. Avery Bradley's not going, and Rajon Rondo's hurt.
Right.
Caruso's a shooting guard. He's kind of important now.
Right.
He's a 17-minute-a-game guy, but with no Rondo, he's probably, closer to 25, 30 minutes a game now.
Yeah, certainly 22. Certainly. Yeah. He's going to get more time.
I mean,
Moved
there's
up a spot in the rotation, no
yes.
doubt.
So with all of that, as you mentioned during the break, Davis is I like your term. He's a bit of a flake. You don't know what's going on there. And I think all of those things weigh into it. But basically, the question is put up as this. Lakers shooting guard Alex Caruso skipped his sister's wedding last weekend in Texas, choosing to stay in the bubble. What would you have done? I did put in parentheses, apparently he really likes his sister. Stayed in the bubble, gone to the wedding. Those are your two choices.
Now, if you had gone to the wedding, you were subject to a quarantine when you come back of either 4, 10, or 14 days. Depends on where you went, how long you were there, and your reasoning for leaving. Now, he was going to Texas. Obviously, a bit of a hot spot right now. So the thought was they were trying to figure out which way the NBA would have gone. They hoped that they would have only quarantined him for 4 days, but their gut feeling was he would have gotten at least a 10-day quarantine, at which point
he's missing games.
Well, he's quarantined at least till the very start of the season, and then he's lost some of his conditioning and what have you. If they quarantine him 14 days, he's missed a couple of games. So what would you have done? It is our poll question.
Dan Orlovsky, 50 minutes ago, go rewatch the first 8 games for the Lions last year. Matthew Stafford was the best QB in football. All right. We're going to go high school here?
Yes.
Okay. Two other things out there that I have. One is, I saw it a couple of days ago, forgot to bring it up yesterday. But have you seen the Mickelson-John Rahm story?
No.
Jason Sobel told it a few days ago. Back at the 2016 FedEx St. Jude Classic, Mickelson worked Colt Knost well, another PGA Tour pro, claiming that John Rahm would be in the top 10 in the world within a year. He was an amateur at the time. He was playing at Arizona State, where Mickelson's brother's the golf coach.
Right.
And apparently, he had just shot 62 with Mickelson the other day when they had played somewhere. And Knost gave Mickelson 2-1. And as Knost said, it hurt me a lot more than it helped Phil.
Right, exactly. So in other words, it was some large coin that Phil rubbed him in for.
Yeah. During a rain delay at the FedEx St. Jude.
It's why they got to get Phil in the booth.
Oh!
They have to figure it out, and they have to just figure out a way to get it out of him. They got to get him talking. Kind of like what the the dog and pony show McCord and Faraday had going,
Mm-hmm.
where they're not in the tower together. You know, hell, Faraday was walking the course most of the time that McCord was up in the booth, but you know, they would have the running dialogue.
Yep. No, totally with you.
Yep, that's it. Miller.
But since we can't sit next to one another, I was thinking about the first break. I still think that's got to be a poll. That might be our poll question when we leave for a week.
Love BOGOing.
When is the next time Miller and Moulton sit next to each other for a show?
Take it out. When you've got BOGO, it's like, hey, knock yourself out.
Broadcasting live from the
Very surprised John didn't make. I know he probably doesn't like doing those. I was waiting for the Mama Don't Let Your Babies Grow Up to be running backs. I couldn't text that to him after the show. I'm like, we did sing today.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Couple minutes past 7 o'clock, top of the morning to you. How the heck are you? We're Miller and Moulton on this Hump Day edition on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming millerandmoulton.com, and broadcasting live once again on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. You can chime into the show via the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line 479-5551, 479-5551. Before we go any further with today's show, was there anybody who thought about, because it was 24 hours ago, literally at this moment, in which I asked, why? Why should we play football? You know, you tell me out there, why should we play? Because at some point, whether it's Goodell, the conference commissioners, you name it, they are going to have to sell this a little bit. There's going to be resistance. And even if it's just one press event, there's going to be resistance. And so you're going to have to sell it. And so why is it that you believe that we should play football?
Where do you see the resistance coming from? Because
are you kidding? The resistance is out there now. Look at all over the media. Please just take a poll question. There are a lot of people that think that we shouldn't play or we shouldn't play right now. At the very least, we got to pump the brakes and see how this unfolds. You know, I mean, hell, Herb Street, the biggest voice in the sport of college football. He came out 4 months ago and he said, I don't see how we play without a vaccine, and we're not going to have a vaccine this year, so I don't see how we play. Now, he did come out late last week and say, I think we are going to play. Now, he did not give his opinion as to whether or not we should. All right. He just said, you know, hey, I've been talking to a few people. I do think we are going to play. Oh, okay. But, I mean, he's on record as saying, I wouldn't do it without a vaccine. We ain't going to have one of those for a while.
No, we're not.
So that's, I mean, listen, depending on what channel you watch, I mean, there's a lot of negativity out there.
No.
And goodness knows, it's the old adage about statistics. You stare at them long enough and they'll tell you what it is you want them to say. And hey, there's numbers on all sides with this thing. There's numbers, there's opinions, there's experts, you name it. If you want to make an argument, all right, 90% of the arguments that you want to make, you can find something to back it up. I mean, some are bat blank crazy, but you know what I'm getting at. Of the mainstream arguments, there's enough out there for you to make it.
479-5551, 479-5551. David asked the question yesterday, why? Still always taking your answers on the Williamson Brothers Marine Talk and text line.
But there was another issue that we addressed yesterday, Mark, and I would like to bring it back up again. We talked about high school football. There was a 5-hour meeting of the FHSAA Monday afternoon to around dinner time, in which they announced, hey, by a 10-5 vote, full steam ahead, baby. Practice opens up next week. Let's go. Individual school districts you can do what you want, but the state is not going to pump the brakes on the high school football season. Your local community is going to have to pump the brakes. And as they pointed out, hey, in the Panhandle and certain areas of the state, it's not that big a deal. I know in a lot of other areas it is, but in certain areas they're looking around going, yeah, why shouldn't we play? Well, we're fine. So you guys do what you got to do. We're not going to put any brakes on the train. Okay. But there was a report while the FHSAA was meeting on Monday afternoon from a gentleman who works out of Tampa and covers high school sports. And he said there are 7 counties along the west coast of Florida that are considering breaking away from the FHSAA and doing their own thing. And so we wondered whether or not any of our counties were part of the 7. We had Adam Regan of the News Press on yesterday. He said, I saw that report from the people I have talked to. I have not heard anyone, a coach, an AD, I have not heard anybody say anything along the lines of, we're going to do our own thing. Okay. So I think, Mark, when yesterday's show ended, we kind of left it at that, right?
Absolutely. I we've had a couple of runs here where in the last year, this year, or about 11 months ago, we were knee-deep into a referee controversy in Southwest Florida. Whether or not we were even going to have referees, they were going to walk. And we ended up doing far more on it on this show than I think you and I ever intended on doing. It turned out to be a pretty big local story. Well, I didn't see us doing a lot of high school anytime soon. Pandemic hits. We're talking about high school sports. We've talked about, all the graduations and all the things that happened. And yesterday you sent out, or John actually sent us a tweet from Vinny Portel, who is the editor of a little paper in Venice, and he writes for the Charlotte Sun.
Right. The Venice Gondolier.
Great name, by the way.
It is.
I mean, it's no New Orleans Times Picayune, but it's...
No.
It's...
But you know what? That's at
it's
least
Sacramento Bee.
It's at least an honorable mention. I think no. Actually, you know what? I'm sorry, Gondolier. That's at least a third-team All-American.
And I might even take it up a notch from that.
But I mean a minimum. You're not honorable mention, the Venice Gondolier.
No. I mean...
Terrific name.
It's better than the Sacramento Bee, isn't it?
Oh, yes.
Right?
Hell, better than the Washington Post and the New York Times.
Well, yeah. I mean, going away.
Yeah. I mean, you're not a first-team All-American. You're not. But you know what? You could be a second-team All-American. You're definitely third-team All-American.
So he sent out a series of tweets yesterday that started with hearing Charlotte County will discuss the option of breaking off from the FHSAA and forming its own conference tomorrow at tomorrow's county athletic directors meeting. And
that was a really? Wow. That's news. Okay. And then followed it right up with also Lee and Collier counties would be part of this tri-county conference. Well, now you've got my attention.
Now we're interested.
Yeah. Huh. Really? Now, he then, Vinny Portel, all right, said that, quoted the DeSoto County athletic director, said she's been discussing the option of opting out, all right, and playing in a conference with another school. Both Sarasota and Charlotte counties plan on pushing back the start of their fall sports season, according to Vinny. And that Charlotte's going to iron out their details later today. Sorry, Mark.
So, yeah, and by the way, Brian Nolan, who is the athletic director at Charlotte High School, said that beginning the fall sports season on July 27th is not in play for Charlotte High School. And he also added, was looking for a bit more leadership and direction from the FHSAA.
Well, Brian,
aren't we all, Brian?
Yeah,
Stand in line. And that is as politically correct of a comment as you could put out there. But you really should just say the FHSAA sucks.
Well,
period. And everybody knows that.
Okay. What's better? All right. The Venice, okay.
Gondolier?
Right. The Venice Gondolier or the Charlotte High AD Brian Nolan's quote was looking for a bit more leadership and direction from the FHSAA. I think both of them are, second or third team All-American quality.
Yes.
Names or quotes right there. Because, Brian, we've all been looking for that for about 40 years now. But, Vinny was tweeting and reported. He had it in today's Charlotte Sun, in which he said, hey, I'm hearing Charlotte County at the very least is doing their own thing. And they may join forces with Sarasota County. I reached out, Mark, after I saw this. I reached out to a handful of Lee and Collier ADs and coaches on Twitter last night. I forwarded them these tweets, and I just said, is there anything to this? Anything at all? And did not have a single AD or head coach say yes. So
did they all say no?
Well, I just asked them, is there anything to this? So, they said no. Okay. They said, I'm not hearing it. And I then followed up with, I go, is it possible this could be discussed without you knowing? And, they all were very diplomatic and they said, I guess anything's possible, but no, if it was a coach that, all the coaches who text me back were like, yeah, we've all been communicating a lot. I mean, the ADs and coaches are kind of like, are we going to play? When do you think we could play? We've been talking a lot. So it's difficult for me to imagine that if this was on the agenda in any way, shape, or form, that the people I text last night, that they would not have heard something about it unless they were just, hiding the truth from me, which goodness knows is possible because they know if I'm asking, I'm probably at some point going to talk about it. So now listen, I've only been in town a little over 20 years. But if you go back, I think to Mark, to the beginning days that you and I were here, but certainly before that, that's how the conferences, were. They were not necessarily, you didn't have Lee and Collier schools in the same conference. I mean, you had Lee schools, you had Collier, there was a separation. And so, this would be a little bit of going back to what it was like back in the day. The other interesting part to this, for those that are into the local football scene, is what was mentioned in that FHSAA meeting, which is you have to play 6 games to be eligible for the state playoffs. So we keep talking about pro football. How many games will they play? College football. Well, can they play 8 to 10 out of the 12? Well, high school teams have 10 games scheduled. You have to play 6 in order to be eligible for the state playoffs. There have been really good teams in recent years who were ineligible for the playoffs because, well, a hurricane came through their community and they couldn't play 6 games. And the FHSAA said, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. Tough luck to be you guys this year. And so in Miami, Dade, and Broward counties, they ain't going to school on time. They ain't playing sports when everybody else is. So much so that the FHSAA said to those counties, hey, if you just to finish your regular season have to play through November, and in theory, those would be playoff weeks, but you guys need to play each other. Well, then play each other. And then so we may have in high school football this year, we may not have any of the South Florida teams that are involved in the playoffs. Because needless to say, it's going to be difficult to be halfway through the playoffs and have those schools finally play the number of games necessary to qualify for the playoffs and then say, okay, now we're going to take St. Thomas Aquinas and insert them in the whatever playoffs. I don't think that's going to be well received. So you guys got the first 2 rounds were buys, huh? Oh, that's interesting.
The other part of this is there was talk of being able to opt out of the state series.
Right.
And there was even some suggestions that almost setting it up like the old college football system, that there's going to be a regular season and then they're going to have a bowl game in lieu of state playoffs.
Right.
And as I was going through Vinny's Twitter feed there, David, it was interesting to note that the Venice football team and their coach said, I hope the majority schools opt to compete for a state championship. We do not want St. Thomas Aquinas to opt out in hopes of avoiding us this year.
There you go.
John Peacock, head coach of the Venice Indians, already talking a little smack.
Throwing some shade there, are
at
you?
St. Thomas Aquinas.
At St. Thomas Aquinas, hoping to avoid us this year.
Yep.
Way to go, coach.
Yep. Michael Irvin, where are you at? That's all I want to know. Just send this to you.
So, Vinny Portel or Vinny Portal, all right, and then Vinny, if we mispronounce your last name, we apologize. But he's been on top of this, sports editor of the Venice Gondolier and writes for the Charlotte Sun, and it's in both publications today. It's certainly in the Charlotte Sun, in which he's reporting that Charlotte County is going to break away from the FHSAA. May join forces with Sarasota County, but he also said, rumored that Lee and Collier would break away. And what I'm wondering, Mark, is are you breaking away for good, or are you taking a coronavirus year?
It seems that this has all been a one-off. Everything that I have read, David, is this has been a one-off for 2020 to try to figure out what to do. And I know not all of you really give a damn about us talking high school sports, but I do hope for the sake of for these kids. It's been tough enough on us. I get it, but I just keep trying to remind people, think about being 16, 17 and what's getting taken away. And I get they're young adults, but they're not going to take this as well as they would if they were a little older. This is the son of a gun. And I hope somehow they figure out how to pull this off. I know you've suggested all along, David, go to spring or go to after the first of the year. I don't see that happening. Even though you might be right. I just don't. The ineptitude of the FHSAA is not going to allow something like that happen. They can't figure out what day of the week it is in that meeting, let alone try to come up with a plan that pushes the football season to 2021.
Yeah, and obviously they don't want to do that.
No, but
much like in college sports that all the conference commissioners and ADs have said, our last option is playing these games in the winter and spring. We want to get this over with before the calendar turns. Whatever best season we can produce while the calendar still says 2020, that's what we intend to produce. That it is a logistical nightmare. And the further you go in the calendar, what if there's a problem? Now you have less days in which to scramble and put a season together. So listen, I get it. We just also went on a bit of a sidebar yesterday in which we talked about, what would Plan B look like this year? But also, I have contended that I'm sorry that the high school football season is the definition of insanity. The first half of the year, everybody's sitting there on Friday nights waiting for the lightning, waiting for the storms, and games are kicking off at 9, 9:30, 10 o'clock, and they're ending at 1 in the morning, and half the people go home, and the other half who don't show up, and it costs schools revenue. And I'm just thinking that, with all due respect, this is asinine. And don't tell me we do this because, I'm sorry, figure out something better. This is stupid. There's no other way to put it. It's stupid. We do not have to do this. Can we push the season back a month? Can we play for the first half of the year on Saturday mornings? And then come sometime early October, Columbus Day, maybe then we move it back to Friday nights for the most part. Storm season's over, blah, blah, blah.
And I know the arguments always come up of, well, what about Pop Warner? What about this? What about that? And David's always been, I don't know what to tell you is the answer. If Pop Warner's got to move and they got to play on Sunday mornings, I don't know. But there is a lot of depth to what David is saying. If we get back to football on Fridays, we'll just start every week telling you how many games were played in this area, how many started on time, and how many were delayed. It might just be part of the starting five, David, on Mondays. And by the way, 16 high school games, 4 started on time, 12 were delayed. That just to keep that running total so people get an idea what we're talking about, because to your point, David, this is always, well, that's the way we've always done it. It's just not a good enough answer anymore.
No.
It's just not a good enough answer.
No. I think we should try to avoid lightning whenever possible. Just, silly me.
In fishing and in football.
Right.
And in golf, for that matter.
Yes, unless, Lee Trevino's line, unless you have a 1-iron. Then you just hold it up in the air and walk down the middle of the fairway because not even God can hit a 1-iron.
Although I watched the special on Jack, and that 1-iron he hit at the 67 Open, it's pretty damn good.
Yeah, 72 at Pebble. I know what you're saying. But, yeah. 17th, it was 17th hole, 72 at Pebble. When he hit the stick?
No, 67.
At Baltusrol?
Yes. When he hit it out of the fairway, punched it back in. And it might even been the British in 67 when he hit, because I just happened to watch, was doing things, and he had to chip it back to the fairway and ended up making birdie to set the 72-hole record. It was at the British. And he hit a 1-iron from the middle of the fairway and just freaked people out there, too.
That's what was called a long iron, ladies and gentlemen. They had to hit long irons into greens. All right.
My best round of golf in my life, I didn't hit anything but a 1-iron off the tee that day. Loved that. Loved my ping 1-iron. Loved my ping 1-iron.
I saw a Faraday yesterday. It was with Jack. And it is, you go back to the 86 Masters and 16th hole, and Jack's hitting 5-iron. It's not even 180 yards. That's how much the game has changed. Jack's hitting a mid-iron into 16 in that round. 479-5551, 479-5551. So we went local. We appreciate your response to yesterday's poll question about high school football and what you would do with it this year. Today's poll question at millerandmoulton.com. Alex Caruso is the shooting guard for the Lakers, and he did not go to his sister's wedding last weekend in Texas because if you leave the bubble, well, they could put you on the sidelines for up to 2 weeks. And you leave the bubble, you run the risk of getting the coronavirus, especially if you're going to Texas. So he didn't go to his sister's wedding. What would you have done? Would you have gone to the wedding, or would you have stayed in the bubble with the Lakers?
Probably a wedding that he paid for. And he's making $5.5 million a year. I think he paid for the wedding. I'm just guessing.
Do you have to throw an extra zero on your wedding gift if you're him and you're not there?
You're paying for the honeymoon.
Well,
whenever that happens.
You're don't know that.
You're paying for everything for the rest of her life.
We don't know
That's your big
that.
sister.
We don't. We think that there's, there was probably, I don't think he paid for the whole thing. I don't.
Now I've got to find out. Now I've got to find out.
Question. So, you know what? Maybe that should have been C. S, A, yes, I go. B, no, I stay in the bubble. C, no matter what, I pay for the thing.
When we come back, a story about a gambler who we all know has lost a lot of money gambling. At least the stories tell us he has. But this is one of those wild bets that he actually won. A great story on the other side. Miller and Moulton, thanks so much for listening. Fox Sports Radio, where we stream at millerandmoulton.com. And we continue to decipher baseball over-unders on Twitch.tv.
Yes.
This is The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
If changing a nickname really works you up, there's
Wow.
probably some over-the-counter medications.
That's pretty smart. Mecklenburg County, Charlotte, North Carolina, just voted to make all of the major stadiums and arenas early voting sites.
We love watching it. The nicknames don't matter.
Colin Cowherd. Weekdays at noon on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
I think. Where was it? Oh, it was in Louisville when they had the primary.
Yeah.
And the only polling place that was open in Louisville was the arena.
Well, yeah, that was lined up through the roof, but this looks like they're trying to be proactive, so they've got big places where people can vote, as opposed to try to suppress all the people in Milwaukee who wanted to vote. Hops, I'm with you there, and I should have said that on air. I mean, he'll be at the second wedding. Hops, you are so on to that. Very, very well said, sir. Well done. My daughter is going to be all sort of pissed off if she's up already. She was expecting a grandma when she got up.
So when she went to bed, she was still expecting?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Flight wasn't canceled yet.
So what's her schedule today?
I think she gets in at like 1 now. It's like a 10:30 flight or something.
Okay.
Automation is the answer. Use your phone to turn on your spa, and it'll be warm when you get home. On-site evaluations. We're a family company, and for over 40 years, we've been doing business right.
The prescription is the Pool Doctor for award-winning pool service, repairs, and unheard of $39 diagnostic calls. That's mypooldoctor.com or 239-574-1133. State certified CPC 057088.
I'm a busy person.
Catch the show anytime. Check out MillerandMoulton.com and subscribe to the daily podcasts. No matter where you're boating, with Towboat US, you're covered by the world's largest towing fleet with over 300 ports nationwide. Your local Towboat US companies in Charlotte, Lee, and Collier counties are here to help 24/7, 365 days a year. Inland, the river to Lake O, and 75 nautical miles. And new membership pricing starts as low as $99. Call 239-945-1664 for more information. Or visit TowboatUSCape.com. With Towboat US, you'll never stop.
Guy did text. He goes, forget high school football for a minute. How do we get high schools to work in person? I work. He goes, I work, but listen, he goes, I work in DeSoto County. Over 1,000 people have had or have the coronavirus of a population of 38,000. How do we open schools safe? And then he finishes, and by the way, the Savannah Bananas bear their alter ego team, the Savannah Party Animals, last night. Good to know. I just told him it's above my pay grade, and I'm staying in my lane on this one. At least on the air. Off the air, you want to come on Twitch and talk about schools open?
Right.
I've got no earthly idea, but they're going to open because they're just passing this $1 trillion stimulus thing, and they're telling the schools that you don't get money unless you're open. So,
although I will say that over 90% of the money that schools get, they don't get from the feds. So it's a bit of there are an awful lot of schools in this country that don't get a dime from the federal government. So it's a bit of a, it looks tougher than it really is.
Seems to be a common theme of anything coming out of there right now. Although he did say yesterday it's going to get worse before it gets better.
I know.
Huh. I thought it was just going to go away.
Well, it is the old adage, hey, a broken clock is right twice a day. I mean, as he keeps saying, hey, eventually I'm going to be right.
Yeah. Speaking of which, found out that my car clock runs slow. Like there's some,
what?
It's like 2 minutes slow. So we fixed it driving the other day and so Eve fixed it. We were driving to go boating. We took my car because I don't want the nice car to get sand and what crap in it. So I'm like, will you just get that right? And
now it's slow again.
And yeah.
That's unacceptable. Oh, my goodness.
You'd go nuts, wouldn't you?
Yeah. Halfway home on this hump day. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Mark Melanson, closer for the Atlanta Braves. He will join us coming up at the top of the hour. You know, baseball season starts tomorrow, folks. Everybody's playing by Friday. So that's right. Scores, highlights. Hey, somebody might watch Sports Center again. That hasn't happened in about 4 months.
By the way, it has not. People are not watching TV in the money demo. ABC's ratings in terms of numbers are down in the 18 to 49. In the money demo are down 54% from a year ago.
Right. During a quarantine pandemic when people are home and
they're not watching network television because there's nothing on.
The problem is, there's no original programming.
I mean, I happened to see yesterday when I had something on. I watched an old movie yesterday. It was on. The Big Chill was on, and I do like that movie. So I'm watching that, and after it was over, they start running, the Showtime because the circus is coming back in August, and they had a thing for Billions, and it just said new episodes soon. Yeah, when? When?
Soon.
Been hanging for a month here, man.
It's like when you first learn what the definition of a few is. A few is 3 to 30. That's pretty broad. How many hours are going to be? Going to be a few hours. Oh, okay. You showed up tomorrow. Well, I said a few. Soon. When soon? I'll be there soon. Oh, okay. Hey, pet peeve of mine that apparently now has become a big factor in your life. You've asked me over the years, are you the type of person in which all the clocks in the house have to be at the same time? Absolutely.
If you really wanted to play a great practical joke on David Moulton, be the if you're an air conditioning guy going to his house, if you're his cleaners, pool person, if you can get in the house and just change the oven, the microwave, and any other clocks that are in there, so every one is about a minute or two apart,
I'd stab you in the neck.
You'd run around crazy for 3 hours.
I'd chase you down the street and commit a felony. What in the world are you doing? Honestly.
So I don't care so much about those things. In fact, I think it's kind of funny when they're all different numbers. But we were going boating Saturday, and my wife threw Waze up so I could see if there was any police cars that were going to be, we were running late. And I had to make a little time. And it said what time we're going to arrive. And I'm like, how is that possible? Because I'm looking at the clock in my car. I'm like, how slow is that? She goes, oh, wow, you're like 3 minutes slow. So we fixed it. We're right on.
Okay.
I got in the car yesterday. I'm 2 minutes slow.
Whoa, hey.
I mean, I know it's an old car with 130,000 miles on it, but can the damn clock work?
It's got to go. Nope. Car's got to go. I mean, figure out a way, maybe this is like the old engineering computer problem. Turn it off, turn it on again. Maybe it'll reset itself. I don't know. But listen, if you get this fixed one more time and it can't stay, if the time can't stay accurate, you need a new car. I don't know what to tell you. So I know it's a lot of money for a new clock, but sorry.
I need a new car badly. It's coming at some point. So golf story that's out there that I think is pretty funny. Phil Mickelson is the biggest gambler on the PGA Tour, bar none. Phil would bet on 2 ants on which one got back to the anthill faster. I mean, all day long.
Well, there are legendary stories. There's a story that's out there for over 15 years that when Phil had that, 2004 was arguably the greatest year of Phil's career. And remember, he changes equipment at the end of the year, which, and I understand Phil's, a mad scientist and all, but that's just bat blank crazy. And there are a lot of people that believe that the reason he changed equipment in late 2004 was that there was an equipment company that paid him a lot of money, and he needed the money because he had a few gambling debts.
Well, not just that. There was also that company may have squashed a story that was going to be in a rather large magazine about Phil's gambling and some other things.
Right.
But
So there are stories out there about Phil and his gambling.
And the story I know the best is that I happened to be at when Blinko's in North Carolina was still open. My buddy Jim Blinko was college hallmates with Hootie and the Blowfish's manager. And he happened to come back to Blinko's, and we were just sitting around, and he was telling a story about those guys playing out in Arizona, and Mickelson inviting them on a Sunday to his club and in some room to watch football. As you all know, Darius Rucker's a huge sports fan, and this guy said Phil couldn't, he must have had 10 grand on every game. And that was just, guys sitting around talking, and he's telling me this story. And this is way before 2004. But sometimes Phil gets it right, David. Yes. Sometimes he gets it right. And this goes back to the 2016 FedEx St. Jude Classic. During a rain delay, he is in the locker room, and they're just doing what they do, betting, gambling, talking smack. And fellow tour pro Colt Knost accepted a bet from Phil Mickelson, who said in 2016, Jon Rahm will be in the top 10 of the official world ranking within a year.
And Colt Knost called BS on Phil.
Couldn't take the bet fast enough. In fact, gave Mickelson 2-1.
Wow.
On the bet. And he told everybody he knew about the bet. He said, I told a ton of people about this bet, and everybody agreed with me. Knost, who just retired, said, do you know how hard it is to get to the top 10 in the world? Now, Phil had a little knowledge.
Now, it's important to point out, at the FedEx St. Jude Classic in 2016, Jon Rahm's an amateur, right?
Yes.
He's about to turn pro.
He had just finished as low medalist, amateur medalist at the 2016 U.S. Open to move his world ranking up at that point to 551st in the world.
There you go. And Phil's saying a year from today, he's going to be top 10.
Then he finished T3 in his first event as a pro. By the time he claimed his first victory at Torrey Pines in January, he's 46. Still some work to do. A T2 at Colonial a few weeks before the 12-month deadline. At the age of 22, Jon Rahm is a top 10 player in the world. Now, we don't know what the wager was for, but Knost told Sobel there was a comma involved. And as Knost said, let's just say it hurt me more than it helped Phil.
How many other bets do you think Phil got off of that?
Well, look at how many bets. I mean, we know that, Phil's not just a gambler. Phil loses.
Right.
Often.
Yeah.
That's apparently the story. So you're good. When you lose often and you have deep pockets, eventually you're going to win. And I thought that was a fantastic story. Now, the kicker is that Rahm played at Arizona State.
Right.
Phil's brother's the coach, the golf coach at Arizona State. And just a couple weeks before making this bet, Phil played with Rahm at Whisper Rock, where Rahm shot 62.
Right. I don't want to say Rahm's good or anything, but Phil's brother quit his coaching job to go caddy for Rahm. So Phil had, as we like to say, a little insider information.
He did. And I just thought, we do talk a lot of gambling. I think that's a pretty good story.
He did say top 10 in the world. I mean, that's a solid.
Oh,
I mean, you could even know about Rahm and go, Phil, I think the kid's going to be great too, but be top 10 of the world in a year? In a year. I mean, Mark.
That's why $1,000. I mean, it came out of his mouth so fast.
Mark, was Phil top 10 in the world when he made the bet? I mean, it was 2016. He won the British in 2013. I'm trying to think. I think he had I don't even know if Phil's top 10 in the world when he's making the bet. He might be, but no guarantees. Because that's Rory, Ricky, Spieth. DJ has just won the U.S. Open. I mean, I don't know if Phil's top 10 in
What
the world.
time of the year? When's the FedEx?
July. June or July.
All right, so I'm just going to do June 12th rankings because it was.
If he finished as low whatever in the U.S. Open, obviously that's mid-June.
No, I'm looking. I'm looking for Phil here. No, he was 17th in the world at this time.
Okay, so think about that.
I mean, by the way, here's your top 10 at that time. You know who was leaving? Day, Spieth, McIlroy, Watson, Fowler, DJ, Stenson, Scott, Danny Willett would have been the one you probably would have picked to fall out. Justin Rose. Those are your top 10.
Pretty good top 10.
Yeah.
At the time. Also at the time, Jason Day had won the PGA in 2015 and had a really good 2015. Spieth obviously won 2 majors in 2015. DJ wins the U.S. Open in 2016. Rory won 2 majors in 2014, and we're all, Ricky Fowler had the 2014 in which he finished the top 5 in all 4 majors. I mean, golf's going along. We're still waiting for Tiger to get his act together there, but the young guys are pulling their weight. That's a solid bet, though. He didn't say top 50 in the world.
No!
He didn't say top 20 in the world. He said
it's
top
an
10.
asinine bet.
I don't blame, Colt for, that's one of those, Mark. How many times do we say, I'll chip in?
Right.
If I was in that locker room, I would have said, hey, I'll cover $1,000 of that. I got your back.
And by the way, to come full circle just for this particular segment, we began this segment talking about my automobile. And it's the hand-me-down from the wife, and the clock, for whatever reason, doesn't keep up. And David told me I have to get rid of the car because the clock doesn't work.
I'll give you one more mulligan with the clock. That's it. One more, then you can need a new car.
I just want to say that Arch chimed in the Twitch chat room and said, no AC, no problem. Broken door, no problem. Clock is off by 2 minutes, sell it.
That's right. Yep.
Thank you for really paying attention to my co-host in that pile of crap car that he had forever that he tries to tell me because he had it for 10 years. Well, it was a really great value. Nothing worked in the damn car. You could only get in one door.
Last 2 years I had it. Didn't have air. One of the 2 doors didn't work.
The sunroof quit working 4 days after you bought it.
Not 4 days. I had a good year where I drove around and I had a year. I did. I had a year because I kept the car for a while. It's not like I could afford to get a new one.
Well,
right?
and you couldn't.
I bought that sucker too. There were no payments.
No, I know. And you learned very quickly when you bought the used Mercedes, and we laughed at you and said, "Wait till stuff starts breaking. It ain't cheap." First thing broke, and you went, "Holy crap! It's really expensive to get these things fixed."
Yes, and that's why I didn't.
Ever.
But you know what worked on the car?
What
worked? Clock worked.
Great.
Sunroof, door, AC, not so much. Clock, perfect.
Arch said buy a watch. Hop said or buy a phone. And Arch did reply, now David loses phones.
See? It's another reason why the clock's got to work. Miller and Moulton. Today was the day when, coming up, Mark Melanson of the Braves at the top of the hour. Seth Everett's about 45 minutes away here on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Arch, that is just terrific.
You're right.
That is just terrific. Man, did I laugh at that.
Thursday night. It's Cup racing from Kansas. Man, this is awesome. We start the engines at 6:30. Man, this is great. NASCAR. On Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Presented by Colby Cooling and Compass Drug Screening. Green flag. NASCAR is back. We are Buffalo.
It has never happened before and may never happen again. $1 million in credit stimulus at Galliana Kia in Fort Myers. We've teamed up with the most forgiving lenders in America to get everyone approved for the new car they really want.
On the plus side, Little Caesars knew the car and would get a pie ready when they saw you coming. Ain't that the truth? You know, if you do remember the best thing about the Mercedes, if any of you have been listening long enough, because this is obviously Act 1, we're doing afternoons when David has the black Mercedes coupe. And for, I don't know, I would say, you may correct me, David, but for at least 6 months, David had a rule. He was not, and I repeat, not going to eat in the car.
Right, when I first got it.
And I don't know if it was not just eat, or were you not even, like, you had to leave it in the bag because you did not want your car to smell like a quarter-pounder value meal.
Right. I was not going to have fast food in the car.
Right.
Yep.
Now, would you buy it, leave it in the bag, and bring it to work, or were you, like, trying to go into restaurants for the early portion of that?
No, I was eating it. I was just eating it, right? Boom, get it, eat it, and then drive.
But then you'd so you'd go into the fast food place.
Yeah.
Like, you quit drive-thrus.
Correct. Yeah.
And there was nothing better because John and I mean, really, David, you're not going to eat in the car. And almost during commercial breaks where David's telling us to F off.
Yep.
Because we would, we ganged up on David pretty badly.
Just leave me alone, okay? I don't want the smell in the car. You know how once it gets in your car, you can't get rid of it, blah, blah, blah. Plus the other thing, I knew I don't get my car washed. I don't get the inside cleaned that often, all right? So stuff accumulates.
Oh, I got to read this text when we get back before I do. Today was a day when, David. You've got a brother. You got a brother from another mother out here, right here, David. You're gonna love. I just want your original reaction. This is one of your people right here.
Yep. I got my peeps. I know somebody will have my back. Somebody will throw me into traffic, but somebody will pick me up.
When we talk this is what we talk about.
He's talking about right and wrong.
We back it up.
Talk about what you know.
We're Fox Sports Radio. And when we talk the talk,
A lot of sports stuff to talk about.
we back it up. Good sports talk radio on Fox Sports Radio.
We've got our good friend Tim Meister, owner of the Four Meisters in Naples, on the phone. We're talking about their huge selection and great pricing on Cortec flooring. Tim, tell us what's new at the store.
Right now we have 90 colors of Cortec in stock, ready to go, pick up, put down as soon as you want it. Everything from starting at $299 on up with lifetime warranty.
And it's not just the many colors of Cortec that you have. You also have other Cortec products as well.
We also carry the Cortec stone product. Looks like tile, looks like stone, but it's Cortec, so you get the softness, quietness, and the easy installation to go with it. We also have Cortec wood, look of wood, real wood, but with a more stable core for Southwest Florida's humidity.
If you haven't been to the Floor Meisters, you really owe it to yourself to visit the store. 6281 Naples.
Do you think Wisher Well was the wrong choice of words?
Floormeisters.com. That's
Not that he cares. Not that he cares, but
Well, he said it 2 or 3 times.
oh yeah, I'm reading the whole quote.
Now tomorrow through Sunday at
2,
7 p.m.,
but
you can grab the best
yeah.
deals on regulators, plus hundreds of closeout masks, fins, snorkels,
Right.
spear guns, lobster equipment, and more.
I mean, she's accused of aiding and abetting a pedophile, but
other than that,
I wish her well.
it was like what my wife was talking about. One of the royals got married. Andrew's daughter got married. I'm like, Andrew
Beatrice.
Andrew wasn't at the wedding. Boy, shocking.
Yep. Actually, it is shocking when you think about it.
This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
11 minutes before the top of the hour. Mark Melanson, a reliever for the Braves, scheduled to join us after the top of the hour, and Seth Everett in about 35 minutes.
Ooh,
also.
a double baseball hour today.
Well,
You can tell Moulton's excited about the start of the season.
which starts tomorrow and starts for everybody by Friday. So for those of you who are wanting some live sports, you're missing some scores and highlights, you're going to have them. Hot steaming deal.
Couple of texts that we got, David, because there are people out there that have your back. 2 minutes off. Someone's 2 minutes off.
Thank you.
Followed by one of the greatest texts we've ever received. David, if you're like me, trying to coordinate the time between the oven and the microwave becomes an event. Because if one advances before the other, my whole day is shot.
Well, that's hard, though. I mean, you got to give yourself,
Well, usually they're right above one another.
They
so
are.
you gotta be amphibious, David.
Right. You have to be amphibious.
Thank you, Charles Shackelford. Just go look it up. That's all I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's really a great quote. It's 30 plus years old,
Yes.
but it's a great quote.
Now it is time for
Miller and Moulton's Today Was the Day When, giving you the history of today's date so you're a beacon of useless knowledge around the office.
Useless,
but a lot of fun to talk about. This is Today Was the Day When. Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
Start today in 1921, U.S. Open men's golf. Jim Barnes wins his third of 4 majors, 9 strokes ahead of Walter Hagen. 1923, Washington Senators. Walter Johnson becomes the first to reach 3,000 career strikeouts with 5 Ks in a 3-1 win over the Indians. 1934, Public Enemy #1, John Dillinger, gunned down in front of Chicago's Biograph Theater. 1955, the Phillies. This just shows how much they suck. They beat the Cardinals 5-3 to win a record 11 games in a row. It was their longest winning streak since 1892. I mean, that is just an awful franchise for so many years.
Yeah, you had the Whiz Kids of 1950, and then they had the collapse down the stretch in 64, in which, only one team, you went straight to the World Series then, and they had a 6.5 game lead with 12 to play in the National League and blew it. And the Cardinals ended up going and winning the World Series. So, Mark, you go from the 1950 to really Schmidt and company in the mid-70s. And they did not have many good teams during that 25 years.
No, they did not. 62, Gary Player wins the PGA. It doesn't even say. I don't know if that's his first or not. I thought they had that in there. 63, Sonny Liston KOs Floyd Patterson in round 1 of the Convention Center at Vegas to retain his title. In 67, 2 things happened today. 1, Jimi Hendrix quits as the opening act for the Monkees on tour.
Think about that. Say that out loud. Hendrix opens for the Monkees.
Imagine mom brings kids to the show to see, hey, we're the Monkees. And Hendrix comes out and plays Purple Haze.
Right.
Also, the Atlanta Braves established a Major League Baseball record for number of pitchers called upon in 1 inning. They used 5 pitchers in the 9th inning to get a 5-4 victory over the Cards.
So, they blame Sparky Anderson and La Russa. Apparently, it started before them.
84, Seve wins his second of 3 British Opens, beating Bernard Langer and Tom Watson by 2. 1990, Feldo wins his second of 3, 5 ahead of Payne Stewart. 1997, Greg Maddux throws a complete game. He used 76 pitches to do so.
Less than 3 pitches and out. And obviously, he didn't throw a no-hitter or anything like that.
No.
So it's not like he faced 27 guys. Right.
76 pitches. 2001, Duval wins his only major at the British. 2012, Ernie Els wins his second. And 2017, Brendan Grace records the lowest round for a major, 62 at the 3rd of the British.
And there was like 20-something guys who had shot 63s in a major. And it didn't matter if par was 70, 71, or 72. There had been like 20-something guys who had shot a 63. But no one had ever shot lower than that. And of all the golfers, it ends up being Brendan Grace.
A year ago, Forbes magazine listed the Cowboys as the most valuable team in the world, $5 billion. The Yankees second at 4.6, Real Madrid third at $4.2 billion.
If you had the money and you could only buy one, would you buy the Cowboys or the Yankees?
Cowboys. Just because I like football more than baseball.
81 dates versus 8.
And I love New York, but I don't want to be somewhere where it's cold that much.
Wow, you have gotten soft.
Damn right I have.
Tell you.
If you were born today, you share your birthday with the before-mentioned Sonny Liston. He would have been 90 today. Died at the age of 40. Alex Trebek's 80. And George Clinton, Parliament Funkadelic, David, we went and saw him. He's 79. as is jockey Ron Turcotte. Sparky Lyle, 76 years old today. Danny Glover is 74. Don Henley is 73. Dave Stieb is 63. I just wanted to bring that up because he was a stud.
Dave Stieb had back-to-back starts where he took no-hitters into the ninth. Johnny Vandermeer is the only person in the history of baseball to throw back-to-back no-hitters. Dave Stieb, you can argue, came the closest to matching it. He took no-hitters and back-to-back starts into the ninth inning. Lost them both.
David Spade is 56. Tim Brown, 54. Keyshawn is 48. Selena Gomez is 28. And Zeke is 25 years old today. That is, today was the day when, on this July the 22nd. As Miller and Moulton fan pointed out, and I remembered this fact, the very first U.S. pro franchise to lose 10,000 games. And
1 minute.
And he says, I believe they have more losses than any other team. You are right. The Philadelphia Phillies have more losses than any other team in professional sports. We got a lot of losses.
Yes, we do. Won the World Series in 80 and then beat the Rays in 2008.
And the greatest baseball game ever played. We're coming on that type of season again, starting tomorrow. The dash for 60 begins. Cannot wait. You have done more to sell baseball to this audience in the past 2 weeks than I think you realize. That could be a poll question. Has David Moulton made you a bigger baseball fan with him hating the 60-game season as much as he does?
Well, that'll be our poll question tomorrow. But our poll question today is Alex Caruso of the Lakers chose staying in the bubble over going to his sister's wedding. What would you have done? Thanks for listening. Mark Melanson.
From Southwest Florida's news leader, this is a Wink News Update.
I'm Lindsay Sablon with Wink News. Lee House says staff beds are at 100% capacity. They are bringing in more nurses so they can open up more beds. Lee Health also says they received a new shipment of remdesivir and they now have a 16-day supply. Make sure you have your mask when you're in Collier County. Commissioners have decided you must be wearing one when you're shopping or eating inside any Collier County business. Congress is looking to give
I don't know. Maybe we started them again.
Yeah, that's all. I was just
I
don't remember hearing them for a while.
They were otherwise killed or hurt in the line of duty. That legislation now goes to the president's desk for his signature. Trust Wink News, Southwest Florida's news leader.
I think that's.
The NBC2 anchor Peter Bush is going to every day kind of document his little thing, and he's also taking questions. See, that's how I think you should do it. You're a public figure. Might as well embrace it.
If your AC stops working, turn it off and call 239-482-1542 and relax. We will take it from there. 24/7, same low prices, never an overtime charge. When you think of air conditioning,
Am I pronouncing his name right?
It's a great question.
I think I am.
Your neighbors use license CICO 57313. Kobe, most trusted name in the business since 1949.
Thank you for your business all these years.
When you went car shopping, you meant business. You aced vehicle history searches and test drives. Now you've got your wheels. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
WFSX AM from Naples to Cape Coral and all of Southwest Florida. 105.9 Fox.
We are.
Here's what's trending now. Brought to you by the Center for Men's Health. C4MH.com.
It is strange having to do all the guest calls. Used to be, with this company for salespeople. Now when I look up names and it's Mark Melanson, Atlanta Braves.
Right.
It's not Lansdowne Street, Jimmy P's, things like that, right?
Right.
Mark.
Yes.
Good morning, Mark Miller and David Moulton. Thank you so much for your time, man. Really appreciate it.
No problem. Yeah, no problem at all.
We're going on in about 30 seconds.
Okay.
Mark, I pronounce your last name Melanson. Is that correct?
That's correct, Melanson. Yep.
Okay. Want to make sure. People botch my name. I hate to botch others.
I'm used to it.
There's only one way to wake up in the morning. How the heck are you? Yep, that's it. Miller.
But since we can't sit next to one another, I was thinking about the first break, toasting my English muffin and saying, hey, it's English muffin time during the starting five.
And Moulton.
Love BOGO English muffins. You throw one on the counter, you throw the other in the freezer.
There you go.
For a week, then you take it out. When you've got BOGO, it's like, hey,
knock yourself out.
Broadcasting live from the Kobe Cooling Remote Studios, where it's always cool and comfortable.
Oh, I like
It's up to you now. It's up to you.
I like it.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Miller and Moulton on this hump day. Thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Stream the show at millerandmoulton.com. You can watch and interact with the show on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and twitch.tv channel. Seth Everett to talk a little baseball and a few other things coming up in 25 minutes time. Pleasure to welcome to the show for the first time Atlanta Braves reliever Melanson. Mark, thanks so much for your time. And we sincerely ask this question: how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Yeah, I'm in Atlanta, and we are close to getting the season started.
How unusual is this start to the season? I mean, I get the whole coronavirus and the pandemic, but just trying to get ready at this time of the year, how strange is this to you and the rest of the team?
Yeah, I've never had a 4th of July off, I'll tell you that. And I don't think since I was 4 years old. So, it's totally different. We're wearing masks in the weight room and in the clubhouse. And we're just trying to keep it as safe and healthy as possible, and which is obviously a good thing, but it's different. The timing of everything has been sped up, just because it was a wait and see, and then all of a sudden our spring training was reduced significantly. So hitters are trying to get ready. Pitchers are, hopefully kept their arms alive, and now we're trying to throw bullpens on day one. And, everything's just been reduced as far as time, but we got 3 days left. We're going to use all of it and start in New York. So,
well, what did you do once they tapped you on the shoulder in mid-March and say, yeah, we're shutting this down for a while? And obviously we didn't know how long a while was going to be. Did you keep throwing regularly because you thought this was only going to be a short time? Was there a point in the last 4 months in which you just shut it down and said, well, I don't know, I might as well take a couple of weeks off and see what's going on? What did you do from a training standpoint?
Yeah. I thought it was a joke at first. I mean, I came into the field and I was in for about an hour. And then all of a sudden everybody said, you guys just go home, just leave, and that was it. And it was like, no, wait, what? Go home. So do we take our stuff but there was no big announcement. It was just, you heard it from one source, and then there was little rumors going around like we're leaving. And then I came back into a different room, into the clubhouse, and nobody was there. So I thought people were playing a joke on me. And then, and then we, once it was official and we went home, we couldn't come back. So if you left anything, it was on a truck headed to Atlanta from Venice, where our new spring training complex is. So, it happened fast. And then once, everybody was home, the plan was just continue to play catch, because we don't know how long it's going to be. And then 1 week, 2, 3 weeks go by and you don't hear anything. And obviously you see what's going in the news. So, we kind of knew it was going to take a little longer than expected, but for the majority of people, and myself included, I continued to play catch and work out. Now, working out became a little bit harder because you couldn't just go to your typical gym or, where you normally train because it was shut down. So trying to sneak into, spots that would allow it to happen. And I don't know, doing home gym workout stuff, and it just totally different. Everything has been different.
Mark, who were you throwing to? I mean, when you said playing catch and those things, I've always had this silly vision of mine that I'm watching Bull Durham, and you get the wife out there, honey, put the equipment on. I got to throw some BP today. Who were you playing catch with? How were you able to get people to do? It's not like football where you can run sprints and you can lift weights. Yeah, you can do all that stuff, but you have to throw, and throwing involves someone catching.
Well, I'm fortunate. My brother-in-law, who lives down the street from me, he plays in the big leagues, and him and I would play catch. So that works out really well. But a lot of these guys were playing catch to the wall or into a net or making their homemade mound and throwing off of that. So there was a lot of crazy stories.
Mark Melancon is about to begin his 12th year in the majors and closing in on 200 career saves. He's with the Braves now, his seventh team. How do you feel the way you normally do, say, with 2-3 days left in spring training in terms of how ready that you feel? Or do you feel ahead of that or behind that?
I feel like we could have used another 5 or 7 days as a whole, including myself, but also just the crispness on things that last little bit. I'm glad we still have 3 days left because I'm going to use all that. But from a health standpoint and stuff, I think we're okay. We're fine and ready to go. It's just another week would have been really nice.
Are you concerned at all about everybody on your team buying into all of the health and safety measures, or does it seem that everybody buys in? You said you're wearing masks in the weight room, and we haven't started yet. So, who knows what it's going to be like 30 days from now. But you're pretty confident that the team has all bought in to handling and preparing for the coronavirus the right way?
I've been really impressed with how guys have handled it. We've had about 10 too many meetings talking about, what's going to happen if things go wrong. So guys are very aware, very much aware of what's going on and how one guy, if it gets into the clubhouse, can really create an uproar. So guys have done a good job. I've been impressed.
Well, like I mentioned, you've been with a few teams, and we're dealing with a public health matter. So obviously you would think people are going to take it seriously, but also you're with a team, Mark, that can win this thing. I mean, your team is good. The Braves can win the World Series. And I don't know that if certain teams would think differently, but this isn't a rebuild here. I mean, you guys know, hey, 2-3 months here, we do the things right. We could have a parade.
Yes. And I think that's part of the reason why people are taking it so serious. Another part of it is there's a few guys that are high risk guys, and so you just want to be respectful there. But no doubt, the Atlanta Braves this year are, we're a good team. So it's exciting and a little bit unfortunate we have to be reduced down to 60 games. I didn't feel like had to be reduced that much, but it is what it is. I mean, nobody could have expected that. So,
Mark, we had the Colorado Avalanche head coach on a couple weeks ago, and hockey's different than baseball. I get it, but energy is important for anybody in any sport. He mentioned it's going to be whatever teams can create their own energy with no fans and it being so different. In baseball, how do you think teams have to create their own energy to stay up when at times it can feel like a glorified scrimmage with no one there?
Well, my thought was whoever can drink the most Red Bull might win this thing. So, Baseball's such an individual sport within the team. When you're on the mound, you're kind of by yourself. When you're out in left field, you're kind of by yourself. So if you can't get up by yourself and get motivated, this is going to be a long year. And the fan noise that they're pumping in just isn't loud enough. It's not realistic. And there's no faking it. You just got to bring it and somehow get your act together while you're out there and get motivated. So it will be interesting. I think he is right when he says the team that can come within and get motivated, within themselves he's definitely right.
Well, and I understand it was a exhibition game last night, but obviously your team was able to keep their minds in it because you were down 8-1 in the 8th and rallied to beat the Marlins last night. And it's going to take that type of concentration and dedication to get through this season. We hear all the time,
right?
Mark.
I didn't even know that. That's great.
Yeah, down 8-1 in the 8th. Came back and scored 8 in the 8th, and then needed to score 1 in the bottom of the ninth to win it. But
wow.
Listen, you've been around, and we hear all the time from guys that the best part of being a pro athlete is just the room, the clubhouse, the locker room, being with the guys. Can you be with the guys this year? I mean, are you going to be able to hang? Have you guys talked about this? How are we going to, just have fun this year so that this year isn't just a drag?
Yeah, Corona's trying to stop us from having fun for sure.
Right.
There's definitely some new rules implemented, that 10 years ago would have just been so frowned upon as far as, guys leaving the clubhouse early. As a rookie, I just can't imagine if somebody told me to go home, I would have been just obliterated with comments, So I just, now what's going to happen is if you're not in the game, if a starter's not pitching or whatever, they're going to be sent back to the hotel, which is just crazy. So, not even to, they have to go watch the game on TV. Just things like that are unheard of, and kind of creating that lingering in the clubhouse to a minimum. But to answer your question, I think, guys will still be able to have some congregation, whether it's in the bullpen or whatever. We might be 6 feet away, but still be able to hang out and enjoy each other's company for sure.
As a closer, this 3-batter minimum thing, when you heard it, did you scoff at it? Did you say whatever? Or what were your thoughts as someone who's a closer? It seems like it would affect you as much as anybody else out there.
No, I don't honestly, I don't think it's going to come into play all that much, because there's a few rules behind it that, if you come in with 2 outs and then you finish an inning, you don't have to start the next inning. So I don't see it being too much different. Managers may 1 or 2 times in a week or so may have to really think about that, but I don't see it being an issue too much.
What do the guys think of the extra inning rules? Starting the 10th inning with a runner on second. It seems gimmicky to me. I'm a guy actually that would just have you play maybe 11 or 12 innings, and I'm actually okay with a tie. So you may hate me even more. But how do the guys feel about the new extra inning rules?
I don't. Personally, I'm with you. I think it's kind of gimmicky. I think it's great for the minor leagues. Something that you're traveling on a bus, your early flights or something in AAA, and you need to get to the next city. But a big league game, another thing that's wrong is they scheduled every game at night for these 60 games, and if people aren't working, they can watch a game during the day. So why are we scheduling every game at night? So if you're playing a day game and you go into extra innings, it's no big deal. But if you're playing a Sunday night 7 p.m. game and you go into extra innings and you're flying to Florida like we have to on this next Sunday, you're going to get in at 3 a.m. And if you go into extra innings, yeah, I understand that. It'd be great to have that rule implemented. But, there's other ways to stop, a long game. It's, just schedule a game a little bit earlier. So in case it does go into 3 or 4 extra innings, then you're okay. But from a stats perspective and all that stuff, things get thrown off. It'll be fun the first few times to see how it plays out, but I don't think it should be in a big league game personally.
All right. I know this is a really silly question before I ask it, but I don't know how much you lick your fingers. This whole wet rag in your back pocket as a pitcher seems to be the most insane thing I've ever heard in my life. Of all the silly rules, how are you as a pitcher? I mean, literally, if you've been doing it, you've been in the league a long time. If you've been licking your fingers for 30 years pitching a baseball, that's a tough damn habit to break, isn't it?
It really is. Fortunately, I don't lick my fingers, but a lot of guys do and rely on that tackiness. It'll be, what are they going to do at the end of the day? I don't know. A guy licks his finger. What are you going to do? You're going to call out the ambulance and, I don't know. So we'll see.
Well, also, with no fans and obviously sound's going to travel. Mound visits. I would think, Mark and I have both done games in which, Mark did a minor league hockey game in which he guesstimated there were about 140 people there. I did a baseball game at a spring training complex. There was about 38 people there. Everybody could hear me and Mark broadcast our games. I'm thinking if you guys have a conversation on the mound, we might be able to hear it. I'm just wondering how are certain things going? Are there a couple of things that you and the guys have already talked about and said, I don't know how we're going to do this?
I'm more worried about the conversation with the umpires and how that's going to go.
And it's one of the things as a fan we're looking forward to, Mark. The Nat sound we could get as fans, I think we could hear some things that we never did before. Mark, really appreciate you taking the time with us this morning. Best of luck to you and your Atlanta Braves, because there is no doubt they are a team that has a shot at the World Series. And, before the Marlins and Rays were down here, there's a lot of Southwest Floridians that have been Braves fans for a long, long time. So there's a lot of people in this part of the world that are certainly rooting for you. Thanks for giving us some time this morning. Hopefully maybe during the season we can catch up one more time. That would be great. And best of luck to you.
Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Mark Melanson, kind enough to join us. This will be his 12th year in the majors. The Braves are his 7th team. He's a 3-time All-Star with the Pirates. He made 3 All-Star teams in the middle of this past decade. And as we mentioned, he's closing in on 200 career saves. Nice little career there. Beginning his 12th year in the majors. That'll play. If at 24 years old, they tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey, you're going to pitch at least 12 years in the show. Damn. Where do I sign?
Not to mention that last contract was pretty sexy.
Yes. Yeah. Did okay for himself. Those 3 All-Star, when you're a reliever and you're hitting the free agent market coming off 3 All-Star appearances in 4 years, and you're about 30, 31 years old, you're going to get paid.
Well, and he won the reliever award in 15, that Trevor Hoffman award. And so, yeah, that works
51,
out.
Yeah, 51 saves that year. Back-to-back years, 15 and 16, he had 51 and 47 saves. That'll work. 98 saves in 2 years, Mark, entering free agency. That'll get you paid. You and I have never had 2 years like that entering free agency before. We've entered free agency before and had our options not picked up, okay, and the phone has not rung. But so we've never had it the other way around.
David, we're only free agents when we get fired. And even then, we have non-competes. So we're not
Yes.
free agents. We have
That's
never, ever gone into free agency with any opportunities to do anything. Do want to say Mark Melanson did join us courtesy of Diamond Turf. That's how this whole thing happened. He has a company that does those backyard greens.
Really?
You know, the golf setup. And a friend of mine is having one built, and that's how. So diamondqualityturf.com, you can see what his company does. Give him a call if you have the means to put, you know, a large green in your backyard and 3 tees like my buddy's doing. I would call Diamond Turf. But PGA quality putting greens, high-performance artificial turf, 941-413-2922. And Mark appeared courtesy of Diamond Turf.
I was wondering how you had this connection. So, you know, it was a friend of a friend, but obviously, and with the Braves having spring training, you know, not too far from where he's got a house, that worked out well for him. As opposed to he was with the Giants before that, and they do spring training in Arizona. So I'm sure he didn't mind the deal from that standpoint. But Mark Melanson and the Braves, even though the Nats are the defending World Series champions, the Braves have won the division the last 2 years. And in this crazy 60-game season, they are the favorites in the NL East once again. Seth Everett, he's already joined us on twitch.tv. He will join us on the radio in a matter of moments here on Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
You can't watch baseball while driving. Mowing, running, walking.
My mother loves the 3 boxes.
Oh, everybody does. That's why I sent Seth the text to see if he would be as nice to do it again. How are you? Give me some more volume, Seth. You're really quiet.
That's my one flaw. How about now?
That's better.
Yeah.
David, maybe tune, because I got you both on the same pot through this. Turn yourself down a little bit, David, and I'll turn you both up. So I just got to have you even as best I can.
I need something. Have you guys ever heard, this is a radio term, have you ever heard of a cloud lifter?
No.
So a cloud lifter provides 25 decibels of clean audio. And I found out, not because of something I knew, that this microphone needs power. And that's why it's fantastic, but it's low.
Gotcha.
And so what I need to do is go XLR into this little blue device.
Gotcha.
Into my computer. And the new computer it's processing the microphone, but it's not processing it with the right volume.
Gotcha.
It's maxed out. It sounds great, but it's maxed out.
Giro, give me
like $100.
Just give me an idea. Yeah.
So
needs 48-volt
like
Phantom is what Arch is saying, and Arch actually knows what he's talking about with this stuff. Believe it or not.
Wait, say again.
On the Twitch chat line says needs 48-volt Phantom.
Oh, okay. I was told a 25 decibel cloud lifter, and I was sent a link.
Miller and Moulton fan says David can help you with that, Seth. That's really funny.
Yeah.
The way that the chat room makes fun of David's technological flaws, because they pick up on it during the show. You can't help it.
That's the beauty of this computer is I can do the same. I can do the same thing. I just have to mute it.
So Seth's like that rock and roll singer on the road. He just has to get very close to the microphone he's singing into.
Right. Correct.
States on charges of bringing a sweat to the brow of breakfast lovers with low spice tolerance. We start with a made-from-scratch biscuit.
Mark Melanson's comment, Seth, the 6 seconds of truth. I said how we had a hockey manager on, hockey coach on, saying the team that can create their own energy. Because I just think the team that drinks the most Red Bulls got the best shot at winning the World Series.
Oh, that's funny.
I think he's right, though. This season hurts a team like the Braves.
Yeah, but I heard something really weird. I heard that there's no policing on the road. Did Mark Melanson say anything about that? And I didn't know that. I thought the only people that could get in trouble were the home teams because they were going wherever they want. But supposedly, when that bus drops them off at the hotel, that's it. They can go wherever they want.
I did ask, just about in general how everybody's treating the coronavirus, and he said, I am pleasantly surprised at how everybody is acting. But it's also, July 22nd.
It's July 22nd.
And he even said, they know they can win, which is different. Now, if you're playing for the Royals, you don't.
Correct.
The Tigers. I mean, come on. There's 5 teams right now we know have no shot at this thing, and they know they have no shot.
Yeah, my guy yesterday had a great line. I'll save it for the show, but he had a great line, and there's a definite feeling that there are some people who are the quote unquote non-believers, and there's 2 or 3 in every clubhouse. And if you give that much freedom to that diverse a group, that's what it turns into. And I hope I'm wrong. I would love for this season to go off without a hitch. I hate the crowd sound. That's the only thing I don't like.
I think they're doing it. The more I think about it, because I think we all hate the crowd noise, I think they are so scared of the audio that's on the field, court, ice,
maybe
getting off. Because, I mean, literally the first golf tournament back, Nance is the only one there at the Colonial or whatever. And Nance is back, and I forgot the player. But they send it to the 8th hole and Seth Everett. And there's a pause, and you hear, shit, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. And Nance goes, well, that's not how we wanted to start this off. I mean, I think they are so afraid of the language that's going to come out. Here we go.
Back to Miller and Moulton. All right, now we're getting somewhere. No. This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
"27 minutes past the hour. Thanks for being with us, Miller and Moulton. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming once again, millerandmoulton.com. That's where you go to download our podcast. That's where you go to vote in our daily poll question, which today, interesting one. Alex Caruso's a guard for the Lakers, and his sister got married last weekend in Texas, and he was going to go. He opted not to because he didn't want to leave the bubble and run the risk of catching the coronavirus and bringing it back to the Lakers. What would you have done? And if your sister was getting married, would you have stayed in the bubble or would you have gone to the wedding? That's our poll question at millerandmoulton.com. Seth Everett, we will ask him, what would you have done? Your older sister getting married, and if you leave the bubble, you're going to have to come back and be quarantined either 4, 10, or 14 days, depending on what the NBA determines. What would you have done?
Well, I would probably stay in the bubble. I think if you're committing, you're committing. If you're in, you're in. And what I've been very, very happy to see is the NBA players are all in right now. And I think that's wonderful. I think the numbers that the NBA are providing are super encouraging. The NHL numbers, and they haven't even quarantined yet. They're in their various training camps. They had 2 cases. Sports is doing very, very well right now.
Better than society.
The rest of the country, not so much, but sports is doing great, and it's very, very encouraging.
I have to do my first Scott Hansen of the day, and for the first time, it's a triple box. Sorry, I missed the red zone so much that we've gone triple box if you're watching on Twitch.
Scott Hansen, and I'm strictly an Andrew Siciliano.
I will be now. I've been Comcast for years. I just made the switch. So this year is my first Siciliano red zone network ever. It's one of the things I have to look forward to.
Andrew and I graduated together, and his roommate was the best man at my wedding. And I helped get Andrew the job in Los Angeles, and he helped me get my MLB job.
Wow.
Yeah, he's one of the best. Absolutely one of the best.
We're going to have to steal Seth's phone one of these days, David, because his contacts have contacts for crying out loud.
Yeah, but you guys are on at 5 o'clock in his morning.
Yeah, exactly.
You're not getting him on.
No.
Tape.
We actually talked about it because he's part of the NFL Network, and so the Thursday night, the NFL Network and the Fox crews kind of come together, and so I think it was Halloween night in Arizona after a Niners-Arizona game, and Mark, you would be proud of me. I actually talked to him and then said, hey, get you on the show, and when I told him the hours, and he looked at me and he's like, yeah, maybe we'll tape something.
There you go. I'm all for that. I am, first off, Seth, the reason that's big news is that David works with 2 networks, is at all of these games, covered golf tournaments And I think that might be the first person David's ever asked to come on the show.
But David, why don't you bring a recorder and just grab guys, for like 12 minutes while you're there, and then come back that Monday and just play it?
I probably should, because that's old school also, and goodness knows I am an old soul.
It sounds great, and guys love they're always flattered when you ask, and I think it sounds good. It's how I do my podcast.
He's Seth Everett, he of Sports with Friends and Hall of Justice. Speaking of his podcast,
we're back. Woohoo!
Well, you got your microphone fixed. That'll always help.
That was torture. I felt like my arm had been ripped off.
I mean, a podcaster without a working microphone is no longer a podcast.
It's very true.
I had no choices. I just had to punt, and I didn't do the show, and it felt so weird. Some guy on Twitter was like, "How come? Did you do 2 straight weeks with Perry Gilpin?" I said, "No, we didn't do a show last week."
All right, we had Mark Melanson on. He really talked highly of how the Braves right now are acting. He just basically said, "I'm impressed. Been in the league, a lot of young guys," and he says, "Hey, look but we have a really solid shot to win, and everybody knows that." Seth, when you look at, a third of the teams right now, we could go through them. We were talking over-unders in the first hour. We know who they are, that right now, for the most part, they have no shot. And sure, you could do the Mariners 13-2 start and everything changes. But if it's a 2-10 start for a Marlins or a Tigers or a Royals, how concerned would you be about teams not paying nearly the attention to the coronavirus at that point when they're out of it?
I think it's all uncharted territory, and I think that the players so far have been very, very impressive in how serious they are taking this. I am the first person to give credit, because having covered the sport as closely as I have and been in those buses and been in the planes and been in those clubhouses, I am shocked. John Halama came on our Twitch channel yesterday, former big league pitcher, and he taught me something really great a long time ago, and it applies to this argument, which is a baseball clubhouse is not a stereotypical locker room like a football clubhouse or a basketball locker room. A baseball clubhouse is like a high school cafeteria. And you have your frat house guys, you have your introverts, you have your intellectuals, you have your shy people, you have all different kinds in a baseball clubhouse. And if you think about how fractured the country is, and you have states where there are people who literally think COVID is not a thing. And I'm not getting all political, but you've seen the videos, and those people, the people who refuse to wear masks, and they're peeing on the floor in the Costco's and all the crazy people. And you're seeing all those people, right? Well, John thinks that there's probably 3 or 4 that are literally in every clubhouse, that they are just that type of mentality, because he said that would be a microcosm of what our country is, and players in baseball come from all over, more so in basketball and football. And he wasn't being stereotypical, he was being honest. And he said his fear is that when you get 10 days in and it's a grind having to be this safe all the time, that he thinks the people who are not believers are going to go out and lick the floor and lick the walls and do, kiss people and do all kinds of things. And that's the fear. But you won't know that, because a lot of those guys are staying quiet. And, I make fun of Kurt Suzuki, because I thought he was so out of line bringing a Make America Great hat to the Nationals appearance at the White House. But there's probably 3 Kurt Suzukis on every team. And those guys for so long were not wearing masks and not believing and not doing. And that's where you worry.
Seth, I think football is paying very close attention to the first few weeks of the Major League Baseball season, because essentially the two sports have the same plan. They're not bubbling. They're going to play games in their home ballparks. And they're not forcing teams to be in a bubble outside of the park. They've got rules.
Yeah, and David, you had a great point about why not practice this travel? Like, do practice. How are they traveling, and how are they doing this? Every team should have one road game. The 2 preseason game was important because they need to practice the protocols. Forget the on-field stuff. They need to practice, and that's why what baseball's doing is very good, that these teams are setting up these localized exhibition games so that it's not major travel. It's for some teams, it's not air travel, but at least it's something so we practice this. I can't believe that week 1 is the first time these guys are going to get on an airplane and have to learn the protocols on an airplane.
Well, and blame the players for that in the NFL. The players are like, we didn't want, and I'm surprised the owners went all the way to 0. They went from 4 to 2, then they were trying to go 2 to 1.
And completely agree.
We mentioned earlier, Mike Pereira's like, boy, really wish the officials had one dress rehearsal before having to go live, if you will, week 1. But there's a lot of things in which maybe one preseason game, and yeah, it would have been an inconvenience. And you could argue it's an unnecessary risk to take, which is what the players argued. But there's a lot to this. And baseball, I think, did the right thing.
And I just know locally, the Jets didn't do their testing of their rookies yesterday because they weren't sure about something. Now, I don't know what they weren't sure of, but I'd rather you err on the side of caution than say, hey, we didn't test them, but we had them in the camp, and they went through drills, and they all ran on the field. If they do that, and you're gonna do it on the side of caution, I don't mind you making a mistake. If you
the mistake should never be not testing.
The practice.
I mean, the mistake should never be not testing. That just seems painfully obvious right now.
Well, but we've seen some of these teams, do the opposite, and I was very impressed with all the different sports leagues in the way they're taking this seriously. My favorite is still the NHL by a lot, with the restaurants, the 2 restaurants in Toronto that closed to the general public, and they are just open to the bubble. And if you are in Toronto, you can go, I heard, with members of other teams to these restaurants, but it's in the bubble. And you're not leaving, and it's literally across the street from the hotel, and you go literally right across the street, and there's security people watching you.
Huge advantage, Eastern Conference. I mean, the restaurant levels in Toronto versus the restaurant levels in Edmonton, I think that's edge Eastern Conference right off the bat.
I know, but the Edmonton has great ice, which drives me crazy. If I hear that one more time, I'm going to punch someone. For 25 years, anytime I've watched a game in Edmonton, whether it's at their current arena or at the old Northlands Coliseum, within 5 minutes of the broadcast, the play-by-play and the analyst, Doc Emmerich, Gary Thorne, Kenny Albert, all of them, they all go, oh, there's great ice here in Edmonton. It's ice. What is so great about it?
Well, there are some places, though,
yes,
don't have good ice.
I mean, it's like saying that every green on a golf course is like Augusta National, Seth. I mean, there is a huge
grass that you cultivate. It's ice.
Right, and there is a huge factor into having great ice.
Okay, good.
Having spent many years working in the sport of hockey, trust me, there's different. I mean, players know when they would go to certain barns going, this ice is terrible.
Correct. But what is it about Edmonton? What's their magic elixir? What do they put? Like, do they put maple syrup in the ice? Like, what do they do?
All right, now I see where
maple syrup in the ice.
Yeah,
would create a sticky situation.
Listen, they have an ingredient from their grandmother that's been passed down through the generations, and they are not letting anyone else know.
Not telling anyone.
He's Seth Everett. Nice. You excited, by the way, about the base? I'm not. Although Mark says every day when I come on the show and I talk baseball, even though I'm not going to watch tomorrow
He's
night.
bitching.
It's not my plan.
He's bitching about baseball, Seth, but I am telling you, it is every time he does it, I get more excited about the season. He's selling me on the 60-game season. Are you at all fired up for it?
Well, I'm fired up for a project that I'm doing Thursday night. You guys know, you're music fans. You guys know the Stray Cats?
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
You know the Stray Cats? Slim Jim Phantom and I are doing a Twitch watch party.
For
my channel. We're doing it for Nationals Yankees.
Okay.
Night.
All right.
Sorry. And it was his idea. So last week I hosted the thing for Stratomatic with Slim Jim Phantom of the Stray Cats. And what he wants to do is a weekly watch party where we're going to pick a random game. And what we're going to do on the Twitch stream is we're going to put the MLB.com game day circle. So like people could follow along on the screen with the game. You can't watch the game because that would be a rights violation. but we'll watch the game on our televisions. But what he'll do is put this MLB.com lineup, so like you see the simulation of the game as it's going on. And Jim says he is going to bring in other rock stars. So like there's a guy from Guns N' Roses that wants to get in, not tomorrow night, but he wants to get in. And we're going to try, I think on Thursday nights, we're going to try to do a watch party on Twitch with members of the rock and roll community. That's cool. So that was something I got into.
I'm fired up for that. I'm in.
Yeah.
We'll be ghost hosting on this channel, and I'll be texting until I'm allowed to get a triple box on that channel.
There you go. You can come on in. Sure.
So rock and baseball is
you're already coming up with names?
Yeah. I mean, well, come on. You got to label everything these days.
My career, I've had some of the dumbest show names. I remember once when I was at XM, and the guy goes, "How about a show called Power Alley?" And I go, "What is that?" I never understood.
It's still called Power Alley. You do know that, right?
Oh, I know. I was there, and it's all because I acquiesced.
Well, I will tell you the best Twitch show, and we do our show on Twitch every day, but we did the draft for rounds 1 and 2, and it was a riot.
Yep.
I mean, it was a lot of fun. We had a lot of people, a lot of texting, and I think your baseball stuff will be received every bit as well. There's no doubt that's fun. I'm going to make sure that I get around for
that. Collins, our guy.
Yeah.
His idea, because I had the MLB.com idea. His idea was to get a camera and a mirror, and have the mirror in the background, and just put a big mirror and have the mirror focused on the TV, so the game
this
is
way you'd
kind
air
of
it.
on.
Right.
And I said, boy, you're a shady character. That sounds just really off.
Is there one of the favorites in the season that starts tomorrow night?
Well,
but
you guys were talking about that before I came on. The issue with 60 games is it's all going to be how you start.
Right.
You mentioned Seattle starting out 13-2, but you also saw Washington last year start out 19-31, and they'd be out of it, and they would know it. So a 10-game stretch is going to be massive, and then it comes into injuries. And when I say injuries, Jacob deGrom is a great example. Jacob deGrom missed one start in a spring setup, and he's going to go opening day. But if he has any kind of a back twinge and they send him for an MRI, that's one start minimum, probably two, and that's an eighth of your season. So it's those kinds of things. And then, Aroldis Chapman got pinched for COVID, and now all of a sudden he's not going to be there for a while because we don't know how sick he is, because they're not having full disclosure, which I get why, but it's very hard to prognosticate. And so my thought is that what happens in the beginning of the season with injuries, whether they are COVID-related injuries or regular baseball-type injuries, because they will be magnified in that first month. Because I have said to you guys for as long as I know you, I don't look at the standings until after 60 games. So the fact that we have to do that is really, really complicated.
I mean, just simple math. Every game is worth 2.7 games of a normal season. Every game is essentially a 3-game series.
Right.
So
you win 8 in a row, you're probably going to the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, that's equivalent to a 20-plus game winning streak during a normal season.
Right. If you go 13-2, if you go 500 the rest of the season, you're in.
Right. Now, here's the irony. The Mariners were so flawed that 60 games into last year, I think they were 28-32. Despite the 13-2 start, they went 15-30 in the next 45.
Well, and I got lambasted last year because I would go, I go on Seattle radio all the time, and they were just like, "Hey, we're 8-3. What? Or, no, 8-2, 8-2. We're 8-2. We're 8-2." And I was just like, "You guys are awful. This is not going to work." And I saw, of that 13-2, I probably saw 6 of those games.
Seth Everett, Sports with Friends, Hall of Justice. Yes, Mark?
No, Seth, with the injury thing, this is what's intriguing to me, because baseball's not really a depth sport. I mean, it's your guys. Yeah, there's some platoon guys, but how important is, whether it's depth, we're having basically a 40-man roster all year. Is there anything to the depth part of this, of a team's system, with 40 guys? Because normally we don't even think in those terms. It's your starting pitching. But as you mentioned, if a starter goes out for a week, that's a big deal.
Well, and the rosters were expanded, and everybody has like a taxi squad, and those guys will work out at a nearby park, and that's the equivalent of the minors. And the minors just saddens me because the minor leagues could have been handled so much better, and it's embarrassing and it's shameful what Major League Baseball did for their minor leagues. But they do have these extra players, and they're starting to make cuts, and they're starting to say that these are going to be the 30 that we start with, and these are going to be the other guys. And there's one pitcher on the Yankees, this David Clark, and he needs regular work, and he wouldn't get it in the regular season, so they're going to send him to this taxi squad to do simulated games so that at least his arm stays loose, so that if this circumstance comes where one of their pitchers goes down, they can call somebody up. Because that's the other thing. If you're in the taxi squad, you're just doing simulated games. You're not in a AAA season, so that doesn't mean that you're fully ready for game action. That's why I think injuries, I'm not trying to duck your question on favorites. I think the good teams will be good. But what I usually believe, and I've been taught to believe, is that eventually the cream rises to the top. I don't think it ferments. I think this is going to be a Padres, a Pirates, a Reds, someone who we're not thinking would sustain it over 60 is going to be in the mix for the playoffs.
And I'm just throwing out there that the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Texas Rangers are my two teams in each league. All right, that I think
in the two hot spots.
That one of those two I think is going to make the playoffs.
Is there a team that plays in Maine? I don't
know. Seth, very quickly, Sports with Friends Hall of Justice. Since you're back working this week, what do you have?
Well, we have a lot of live broadcasts. So John Halama and I have reconnected. John was the player to be named later in the Randy Johnson trade. And we recorded a podcast yesterday. We actually recorded it live on Twitch. But one of the neat things about it was Randy Johnson got me on the front page of the newspaper my first day in Seattle. And John knows the story. So we talked about that. And then we talked about his various career. He pitched for 8 different teams. And now he's a pitching coach in the Padres system. And was one of my dearest friends. He was one of my guys. And we explain in the podcast how in that era, I could have a friend on a baseball team I was covering, and he wasn't my source. He wasn't a guy that I would pilfer for information. I had sources on that team, and he wasn't one of them. He was just a guy that I could hang with on the, in the dugout before games, and we would go out after games. And so John Halama is Sports with Friends, and we put it together as a podcast so it doesn't sound like a quick show on a podcast. And then for Hall of Justice, the fine folks at Wizard World have asked us to host it live. So today at 4 o'clock Eastern time, I'll ghost host it on my Twitch channel, but we're going to do a Hall of Justice episode live, and we're going to take questions from fans. So it's going to be like a fan opportunity to ask us stuff. And this was always planned. Last week's episode was not planned.
He's Seth Everett, Sports with Friends Hall. What?
Gotta support my.
Look at
you. No, Seth, I can bounce you for that.
Well, come on now. Last week it was the Sonics t-shirt.
I've got no problem. I've got no problem with the Sonics. I do not like the New Jersey Devils.
The 95 Stanley Cup champion Devils t-shirt that he's
still
got.
Still ticks me off, that left-wing lock crap.
He's Seth Everett. He'll join us again next week. Seth, stay safe. Be well.
You got it, guys. And by the way, Archangel, help me with this microphone.
Yes. Yes. Seth needs more power. Don't we all at this age? Thanks, Seth. Miller and Moulton. The good, the bad, and the ugly to wrap things up on this Wednesday when we come back. Thanks so much for being with us, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Welcome to the program. This is
Thanks, Seth.
That was fun, man.
Always is. People really, our response last week was just huge.
Oh, it's cool. I mean, it's super easy, and it literally looks just like Zoom. So it's super easy to set up. And this computer, like my old computer, for some reason, it had a bunch of internal microphones and stuff. So every time I would start my computer, I had to make sure the settings were to the right thing.
Yes.
This computer doesn't have any of that. So I leave these things plugged in. I don't have to plug anything in. I literally just turn it on, click your link, and it's in.
It's kind of why once a week I don't even shut the computer down, but on Fridays. Just because once everything's up, it's so easy to come in here and just hit a couple of buttons, and we're back on. I'm right with you.
Totally. But no, it's super easy, and this computer just
When
hums.
I was a kid, I was afraid of the ocean. And there
It's
I
such a
was, 2
difference
miles
from
below
what
the
I've been
surface.
doing for
But as a
years
scientist,
and not
we prepare
realizing.
for that. Using our training and a little creativity, we fix
But
this
you
up
guys
and
make
make our
Mondays and
experiments.
Tuesdays
The dive
go
was just
go by
too
so much
important.
faster.
When you're up at
When
4
I'm
in the
doing
morning.
when I'm doing those godforsaken Alabama sports reports, and I can't figure out what's a goddamn right, and you guys are yelling at each other about whatever the hell, and I just it's
I wouldn't trade that dive
Dr. Figueroa uses her passion for STEM to
What we do.
no, it's not worth getting up at 6 on days that I don't.
No, I don't blame you. I have to tell you, Seth, it's funny, because you know how you've been with the virus now. So I got a buddy that lives in Portland. One of my oldest friends.
Maine or Portland,
Oregon. So we've been friends since, I've known him since the 7th grade. We've been friends since the 9th grade. And I'm like, I called him because I'm seeing all this stuff in Portland. I'm like, what the hell? I'm like, and he lives close enough to walk to downtown. I mean, he lives in Portland proper. And I'm like, what's going on in Portland? He answers with, not that much, really. What the hell is going on in Florida? It just started. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I got nothing for you, man. I have got nothing for you.
Yeah, Florida's a mess.
Because he's like, literally, he goes, I can walk to where that's going on. And if I didn't watch the news, I wouldn't even know it was going on.
It's crazy. And that governor, and again, I am the least political, and I'm the most down the middle guy, and I don't care, Republican, Democrat. That governor sounds like somebody out of the Legion of Doom.
And the thing is,
he's wacko.
And the thing is, this guy, literally, if you just look at his resume, he's a veteran. He has a Harvard law degree. I mean, this is the guy, when you write it down, you'd want as president, if you know what I mean.
So dumb. The things he says are so stupid. And it doesn't look like he thinks he has an agenda, but it's almost like he's like texting Trump while he's talking and going, you see, I can say it good.
Well, because I think they've told him that he could follow Trump to the White House. I'm telling you, that's been my theory all along, because when he won, I was scared to death. I understand that. But when he started, I thought for sure with the water stuff, he'd just take care of Big Sugar. And he came in, fired everybody in Miami, and I was like, wow, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, that's
so
crazy.
I don't know.
He literally just sounds like a comic book villain. He's wild. And the other governors, like the Texas governor, I don't have an issue with. The Arizona governor, I don't understand, but he's not as bad. The Florida governor is by far the Legion of Doom. He sits right next to Gorilla Grodd and Lex Luthor, right in that Hall of Doom.
Oh, thanks, Seth.
All right, guys.
Talk to you later.
Be good.
Sounds good. See ya.
Goodbye. By our exclusive unlimited mile lifetime warranty.
Go back to the two-person setup. Come on, where are you? There you are. Boom. Are they really, Big Val? I've got it right here. I have not even opened this. I've not even leafed through this magazine yet.
If KBB says it's worth $5,000, Naples Nissan will give you 13.
Phil Steele?
20 on his power pole.
Who?
Tennessee.
You must act fast, though.
Wow.
Visit NaplesNissan.com for full details. Offer on select models with approved credit and cannot be combined.
Now, where's he got him in his top 40? Here's what I want to see.
I'm curious where he has Boise.
Hang on.
Dan Martineau here, owner of DR Martineau Roofing of Southwest Florida. I've been repairing and replacing roofs for 27 years.
He has Tennessee 28, by the way.
DRM Roofing.
He has Boise 24. I probably need to figure out what I'm doing for this segment.
Well, it's a little late now. It's about to start.
Yeah, I know.
From the best headlines,
The best.
to the worst.
It's the worst thing that ever happened to anybody ever.
Prepare yourself and hide the women and children. This is Mark Miller's Good, Bad, and Ugly on Fox Sports Radio. You're live.
Wow. Jiro, you outdid yourself today because I could read every one of these. Let's start in Georgia, where Ryan Seymour, Kai Keller, and Pearson Blair are heroes. They're 14 years old. They saw a house engulfed in flames, rushed inside, got a child and a Great Dane with the first run. Two others found a water hose to start putting out the fire. All three are freshman football players. And They jumped into action, saved the family and the dogs. That is a great story.
Wow.
For the bad, we go to Michigan, where a Michigan restaurant lost thousands of dollars in sales after a busboy said he had COVID-19 but didn't. Turns out the busboy just wanted a day off and lied. The lie forced the restaurant to close for 2 days, which also means they had to cancel a wedding rehearsal party. The timing obviously terrible for the restaurant as they're trying to recover after being closed for months. Ouch. And finally, the ugly. We stay in Michigan, where Wendy Ween is in big trouble. The 51-year-old tried to hire a hitman to kill her ex-husband. She did it from a website called rentalhitman.com. Well, the website's fake, and when she filled out a service request on the website and wanted a consultation to help with the issue, the owner of the website contacted the Michigan State Police because he was concerned that she wanted to kill her ex-husband. An undercover trooper posed as the hitman, where she offered $5,000 to have her ex whacked. She now will spend a little time behind bars. That, David, is the good, the bad, and the ugly on today, July the 22nd. This is 2020.
Our poll question at millerandmoulton.com, that Mark Miller, the David Moulton on Twitter. Alex Caruso, a shooting guard for the Lakers. He, of course, is in the bubble in Orlando. Well, last weekend, his sister was getting married in Texas. And he decided to stay in the bubble and not go to the wedding because he was going to have to be quarantined for anywhere from 4 to 14 days if he went, plus run the risk of, well, going to Texas and getting the coronavirus and bringing it back to his team. So he decided to stay. What would you have done? Would you have gone to your sister's wedding or would you have stayed in the bubble? That's our poll question.
Tough for you and I to answer that as only children. Because it's pretty simple to say stay in the bubble, but I don't have anybody that's going to call and yell at me about that.
Right. My gut feeling is to go to the wedding, but I see why he did it. I do.
And I think a lot has to do with the two Lakers that aren't there. I think there's a lot of factors that were involved. I want to thank Mark Melanson and Seth Everett for joining us. Miller and Moulton, Fox Sports Radio.
From the best headlines. The best.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. That wasn't supposed to fire.
Hide the women and children. This is Mark Miller's Good, Bad, and Ugly on Fox Sports Radio.
Wow, somebody screwed up on this log.
Are we clear, Jiro?
Yeah, you're clear. I guess John or somebody did this.
Double dipped it there, huh? Oh, that's funny.
I tell you,
well, it's live. If anybody doubts it, it's live. Jiro, thanks for everything.
All right, thank you. See you guys tomorrow.
See you tomorrow, Jiro. That was great. Seth, as always, thank you. Arch fixes with microphone. And I think
Arch.
We're all good.
Yeah, Arch, Seth, exchange information. Make sure, you can help Seth out there.
And David, thank